Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is 5:06. Thank you for your patience as we kind of got ourselves together, but we're ready to get started with our June work session. Dr. Hooker, would you like to take roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Hottie Hensley. Here. Ms. Mary P. Bagby. Ms. Linda Davis.
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager.
Here.
Mr. Tim Denson.
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant. Ms. Nicole Hole. And Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, we have a forum and we can move on with our agenda. So we have a presentation from GSBA. As a reminder to the public, we are endeavoring upon our next superintendent search, and as a part of that, we asked GSBA to come and provide some insight on a service that they could provide for the superintendent search before our decision-making on what we want to do moving forward. So we've got GSBA here, and if you all can go ahead and get started, that would be wonderful. Hello, Dr. King.
Okay. Hello again. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Hooker, and guests. I'm Samuel King, Director of Superintendent Search Services and Board Development, along with Julia Bernath, who's with us as well. She is a Board Development Specialist as well as a supporter and member of the Superintendent Search Services team. We are happy to be with you this afternoon to talk to you about what Georgia School Boards Association provides in terms of support for boards as they endeavor upon what is extremely important as we preach to the choir, with you and your decision making about your next step in the search for your superintendent. So what we hope to do in this afternoon is to give you enough information so that you can begin to reflect and make an informed decision about how you move forward in terms of support. So thank you for the opportunity. With that, you know who I am. I'm going to ask Ms. Bernath to do a quick introduction of herself as well, and then she'll dive right into the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. King. I'm Julia Bernath. I am a Board Development Specialist with GSBA. Prior to my employment at GSBA, I served on the Fulton County Board of Education for 23 years. And during that time, we had 11 superintendents. So I feel like I'm an expert in superintendent searches. It's a pleasure to be here. And truly, this is not one of the most important jobs, but the most important job you will do. And hopefully this process, whoever you use, it will be a process that will pull you together as a team to select the next person who's going to manage your district for you. So, GSBA brings to the table a wealth of information and experience. We've done a number of superintendent searches. We do a number every year. We have at our disposal not only state agencies that help provide us with information that we can share to get the word out about your superintendent search, but national organizations, most importantly, the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. That's a partnership that we have with them, and that gives us access to candidates all over the country. And we also work with the Association of the AASA, which is the Superintendents Association, the National Association for Superintendents. This process, it's always longer than people think it's going to be, and it's always more detailed than people think it's going to be, because it requires a lot of thought and discussion on your part, really reflecting on what you want to see in the next superintendent. And it also, you may engage your community as part of this process to get their input. The bottom line is that it comes down to you. And what we want to try to provide you with is the framework that you use to help guide you through this process. And at the end of it all, you will receive training credits for this, which is the smallest component of what you should be looking at. But we've got a great framework that we use that helps on what you do. So again, when you go into this, there's a lot of legwork that GSBA does on the front end to help provide guidance to you as you think about what you want to see in the next superintendent. And at the same time, there's, we're trying to make sure that what you say you want, we can find in the candidates that come forward and are interested in the position. And part of that framework works around the professional, sorry, I have to write it down because I always call it PCEL standards. They're professional standards for educational leaders. That's a national benchmark that people use. Again, you hire someone as your chief executive officer, and this hiring process will help bring you together on what you see that you want in the next superintendent, and aligning all of that information with the needs of the community, what your strategic plan says you want to do. And it's based on, what we do is based on these two components, the missions of the National Association of Superintendent Searchers and the Georgia School Boards Association, in making sure that we find those core values that are important to you, that align with the candidates that come before you, and that we represent your resolve as part of the state association. So again, we talked about this. The National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers is only available through your state association. There are other groups out there, and we keep up with who's posting searches and what candidates are out there. So there is a process that we go through that announces the vacancy, the process, and the transition that we use, because we start with helping you figure out what you want, and we end with bringing in your new superintendent and helping to transition them into this new position with your board. Dr. King.
As Julia stated, we are members of NAS, which we'd like to just pinpoint the significant pieces for what we do, so that as you consider your next step, then you can kind of draw a comparison between what's different about an association's approach and what we do at GSBA compared to an outside entity. One is just that, being members of NAS, the National Affiliate of Superintendent Searchers, which means that while we have contact and membership at the national level across the board, as you see on the screen, but it also means that our entire team has to receive training each year on professional development and updates on what's important as you make decisions on finding your next CEO and best fit for that. You also saw a snapshot of a slide that Julia presented that centered on the domains, which that term should be very familiar to you, because domain 6 is personnel, and there's actually a language in state board rule that describes why you're responsible for that and what's your responsibility about it. I'm going to take a quick step back to that and pinpoint that, because I think that's going to be important going forward in terms of pinpointing the difference in what we do provide in others. Because in domain 6, this is taken directly from state board rule, you see here that under standard A, under personnel, it talks about the chief executive officer, who is your superintendent, but the board has the responsibility of employing that person. And so not just employing that person, but you are to look for an individual that has the things that you see here in terms of focusing on verified knowledge, expertise, skills, and prior performance history to predict the successful performance in the role for you. Typically, when you use another outside party in doing this, they're not going to be laser focused on these kinds of things in terms of how that aligns with your work. So I want to move now very quickly forward to talk to you about how expansive that could be. And you see in the dark shaded areas are reflective of all the states who are also members of NAS and receive the same training, which connects us with that same database of associations and states, and also the candidates across all of those states, as well as others. So that's another significant piece. Now, what about the process itself? The application process in terms of information, in terms of communication, the application review, and all of those things in terms of what that means for you when we decide to move forward with that. Julia mentioned the framework. She mentioned PSELs, Professional Standards of Educational Leaders. One major difference in what we provide is that the process is aligned to those 10 standards and 10 indicators that I'm sure you all have heard of before about what makes an effective instructional leader. The entire research-based survey that you will receive as a board is aligned to that. You will be asked questions about each one of those indicators, and you're going to see what those indicators are in a few minutes. When you answer those questions, we will do an analysis on what each of you said and report that analysis back to you saying, here's what you said you need and what you're looking for, and here's what that profile looks like in terms of your next superintendent and how it aligns with your work. So that's a significant alignment in terms of PSEL standards and what it means. So not only, and then Julia will pick up here, but not only will that alignment connect with your profile, it will also be reflected in your virtual brochure that will go national as well as at the state level, which we'll talk about here briefly in a moment. In addition to that, the application itself will be aligned to PSEL standards because each candidate will have to answer questions aligned to each of these. Once you do this analysis, if there is an item here in the 10 that you don't deem of importance to you, then you will give us those results and let us know that, and that will be reflected in the profile that goes forward to those candidates. So none of the items that we are indicating to you will be written in stone for you, which suggests to you that you will be in the driver's seat throughout. We'll provide the guardrails and parameters, however, that will go back to examples of like the Domain 6 and what you must do, and the legal pieces that are required in the law in terms of confidentiality, public meetings, open meetings, and all of that, when that should happen and when it can and can't happen. So with that, I'll hand it over to Julia, and I'll be back with you in a second.
So you can see, looking at this slide, these are some big general categories. And again, doing a superintendent search to me is like painting your house. It takes a lot to do on the front end before the paint ever touches the wall. So there's a lot of legwork you will need to do as a governance team to talk about what your interests are, what you feel is important, narrowing it down so that when the announcement goes out that the vacancy is here and this is what you're looking for, you'll attract the kind of candidates that you really want to have. So this is sort of the timeline for how things work. You decide that the vacancy is here. You have to determine what those details are going to be in announcing what you look for. Then you'll have candidates that apply. GSBA will give you every candidate that applies, from the most qualified and the one that most closely aligns with what you're looking for to the ones that seem the most divergent. And it'll be up to you to decide who you want to interview. You may want to interview everybody that's there. You may want to select and narrow it down. But GSBA will help you by gathering that information and then giving it to you. We don't pick the candidates. You pick the candidates. Then we get into the details of the interview. Most districts like to have 2 rounds of interviews. The first round to kind of follow these set procedures and ask those specific questions that were put out in the advertisement. The second one is more free-flowing, and you may narrow down the number of candidates that you want to see on the second round. Once you have determined who you want to hire, then GSBA will work with you to help with the transition in leadership as that new superintendent comes on board. So I've talked about a little bit of this already, but again, we are telling you how we work. We will help you determine the fit, criteria, and parameters. We give you, as Sam said, the guardrails for figuring out what it is you're looking for. We help you with the timeline, and then we also help advertise the position and help market it for you throughout the process. So as part of that, GSBA will have ongoing communication with you, answer any questions you may have. When the candidates pool has closed, then we will present all of the candidates to the board. Hopefully, the criteria you set forth on the front end will attract the kind of candidates you're looking for. We'll respect those state laws. As Sam said, there are certain things, questions you may ask, you may not ask. We follow open meetings law. In Georgia, the executive session for personnel is where you will discuss these processes and meet with the candidates. And then helping to give the media the information they need once you have gotten to the point where you're selecting your candidate. We will customize a brochure for you. We have folks on our staff who will work with your communication folks to help get the information so that it can be put out to the media and to the public. We will be in touch with all of the candidates, and the candidates do go through GSBA. We will help you with any kind of social media marketing campaigns you want. And then if you want to get input from your community on the front end about the type of leader they think you should be looking for, we can help you with that either virtually or through surveys or focus groups, whatever it is, again, that you choose to do. And now Dr. King is going to actually talk about the process.
Okay, we mentioned state and national advertising, and started the whole notion of giving you a snapshot of what that looks like. In terms of national advertising, in reference to significance for us, you see on the screen examples of the focus that we have at the national level in terms of membership and collaboratives. In addition to topschooljobs.org, NAS, which we mentioned before, the database that's throughout the nation, 40+ states, and those highly qualified candidates that are already a part of those databases. National Job Bulletin, also K12jobspot.com, School Superintendent Jobs, Revelis, which is our applicant tracking system. I'll go back and pinpoint AASA, which is National Superintendents Association, which is what Julia mentioned earlier. We have a collaborative with them in terms of their academies, multiple academies that they use to help candidates receive national certification and those that are aspiring superintendents. So all of those folk from across the nation that are a part of that is a part of our process in terms of announcing those at the national level. State advertising, the things that you should be very familiar with already, those entities that you see here are automatic. Once we press go on your announcement, automatically these entities will be a part of that and have access to it as well. In terms of the application itself, getting ready for the information and communication that Julia alluded to, the application review process, I want to talk a bit about that as well. Think about what I mentioned to you earlier as you eyeball the bullets that are on the screen, because the first step will be, as I mentioned, that you would move forward and complete the research-based analysis that's aligned with PCL standards so that you develop the profile aligned to those 10 standards or less if you decide one or two, et cetera, are not important to you. And that builds that profile that goes into that announcement. So we'll work with you to establish that. We'll also work with you to establish a timeline. The guardrails that I mentioned earlier around that would be the things that come forward in the law. For example, when you get to the finalist level and you announce up to 1, 2, or 3 finalists, by law, the clock begins to tick, and that you have a 14-day at minimum resting period before you can go forward and name a final, your final superintendent. Those are things that can't be tampered with, which can't be tampered, so that you cannot use to adjust the timeline. We recommend that you post for a 6 weeks period. Sometimes boards do less. That would be your prerogative. We do not recommend that you post for less than 4 weeks, however. So 6 weeks is our recommendation. What you must understand with the timeline is that it depends on how much time it takes for you to get that answer to the research-based survey that goes to each of you, back to us, get the analysis back to you. We give you that profile based on the great attributes of Clark County and develop that profile to you in that virtual brochure. Once you approve that, we press go on posting the announcement. So at that point, it goes forward to the national level, also obviously to the state and local here. We accept those online applications for you for that period of time. All of that is handled by us, facilitated by us, and we keep you updated throughout. Once that format closes, then we give a report to you in terms of how many candidates you receive, for example, and then it takes, by rule of thumb, about 2 weeks for our HR department to do an analysis of each of the candidates' packets that might have been submitted. Julia mentioned that we don't hold candidates back. That's another significant piece for us compared to other entities that, firms that do searches. Sometimes firms bring to you X number of candidates saying that here are the people that you need to look at based on their rankings and that kind of thing. We don't do that. For example, if you receive 30 applicants, then you receive all of those. However, they will be categorized. So group 1, for example, will consist of those candidates that most closely align with your profile. If there are 5, 6 people in that group 1, you'll know that there are 6 people in that category. Group 2 will be the next group, group 3, group 4. So group 4 obviously will be the lowest level in reference to the analysis of results that meet your profile in terms of how they completed that packet and align with you for your needs. So you see here examples of all those reference checks that take place. Part of that HR process in reference to why it takes a couple of weeks consists of those bullets that you see on the screen. All of the reference checking in terms of social media, in terms of their licensure or abilities to secure licensure. Not only do we look at that for internal candidates within the state, but from outside of the state, you have to look at, are they eligible for reciprocity? Because PSC recommends that a minimum level of qualification for a Tier 2 applicant really falls at about level 6 and above. So the question at the national level will be, can these candidates secure reciprocity and have a license and move into Georgia into the role? So those are the kinds of things you're looking at here in terms of their performance and their prowess in reference to leadership also. I'll pause here. I know we're saying a lot, moving pretty quickly. Any questions?
Was that the totality of your presentation? Are we ready for Q&A?
We can move forward and finish it then, and we can take it at the end.
Yeah, let's move forward and finish it,
All
and
right.
then if you could save, just kind of jot down your questions, and we'll save that for the end, if that's okay.
All right. So here we begin to give you a snapshot of what the board's work is in reference to this, from step 1, which is what Julia is going to step forward to talk about in terms of what you must do as we move forward in this process, and then I'll come back and close it out.
So this is after all the things that Dr. King has already mentioned, that the application guidelines are put together by you, the application goes out, the candidates reply to the application, then your work starts once the deadline closes and those applications have been vetted and brought to you and ranked. You will then meet as a group, you'll meet individually and review each of the applications and decide what you think about them individually. Then you'll get together as a group and talk about them and think about who you want to interview. And GSBA will help support you with that. You will go through some opportunities to look at some question banks to find the question that most closely aligns with the way you feel like you want to interview these candidates, being aware of the things that you cannot ask. Then you select those candidates, and we set up the interview times, and you'll help us determine places, locations. We'll talk more about that if you choose to use us. And the interviews will be conducted. GSBA staff members will be there to help assist you, but we are not asking the questions. We are just there to offer assistance to you as a governance team as you go through this process. Once you've been through round 1, you'll decide who you want to invite back for second interviews. We'll assist you with that as well. Once that is done, you will pick your finalist, 1, 2, or 3 candidates, And at that point, it will be publicly announced. You will have a called meeting of the board, or it has to be it doesn't have to be called meeting, it could be at a regular meeting. But you will publicly announce that this individual or these individuals are named as your finalists. And as Dr. King mentioned, you're required to wait 14 days from when you announce it until you actually vote to hire someone. And during that time, the final vetting will be done, and we will make sure that's the time when the contract is negotiated. And once that happens, then you'll get to work, and we will come back and help support training to bring this new superintendent on board. And now, Dr. King.
All right, as Julia mentioned, once you get to that point of selecting candidates for interview, we mentioned executive session. Much public meeting like what we're doing now, this is about the process. Obviously, this isn't an open meeting and done with the public. When you get to the point of receiving those applications in reference to the number of candidates that responded, that will be an executive session. Of course, you would post it as an executive session for personnel, but when you receive individual candidates with names and sensitive information, that is done in executive session. Once that happens, we work with you in terms of your profile for you to determine who you interview in the first round. You determine your dates, you determine your location. We support you with that as well. With all of the scheduling, it's not an expectation that you make any contact with any candidates. We handle that for you at your direction in terms of your decision making. Once you enter into that first round, you narrow it down in terms of people you want to invite back for the second round, and then that process starts that Julia mentioned a few moments ago. Of course, the process that we use is continuously reviewed and approved and tweaked by legal counsel throughout to ensure that what we do is meeting the letter of the law and supported by all of our legal counsel. Once you get to the point of announcing that finalist and that 14-day clock begins to tick, and you move on the 15th day or beyond and announce your permanent superintendent, you also have the opportunity to have that transition meeting, which you see a bullet here that says offer assistance to the board and the new superintendent with a 90-day entry plan. All those things are designed to align with your priorities that you've identified in your profile. So while this is a part of the package, and it is optional, so many boards choose to do that once a person is announced, to come together and have a public discussion between the board and the incoming superintendent about what's going to happen during that first 100-day period of time, which means the first 3 months, align with those priorities. And it is designed to ensure that not only it attracts those folk that are represent the best fit for you based on your profile, but to ensure that you're laser focused on supporting that new person coming in, because the research is pretty clear what happens in the first 100 days with new CEOs in public school districts. That's of paramount importance in terms of your needs. And so that's guided by that framework and the PCL standards as well. Final decisions are made. We talked about this in terms of that entry plan, and obviously that could be some overlap with current leadership or internal leadership, because where the rubber meets the road is that any candidate comes forward and you make your decision. When that happens, any kind of transition discussions that might occur, as well as the team building that you decide you want to do with that person, we support that as well. I mentioned this, that first block of 30 days, that second block of 30 days, that third block, that guides what happens. Timeline-wise, this is a snapshot as we prepare to conclude here, snapshot of what you need to think about. We've already mentioned most of this, including the 6 weeks period for posting that we recommend, including the rule of thumb, 2 weeks that it takes to have HR department review those application packets, and then group those by categories so that when we meet with you in executive session to present those candidates, you see who's in group 1, who's in group 2, group 3, group 4. Again, you can choose any of those candidates to interview, but you will be crystal clear about what the HR results indicate in terms of those application packets and how they were prepared. in reference to that timeline. All right, so we're at the point of questions, and we'll be happy to address those.
Thank you so much. I saw one, yes, Ms. Hall.
Thank you. Hey, board members. It's so good to see everybody. Hey, Dr. King.
Hello.
So question about, I know we heard about the ability for the public to give input on surveys. Does that come before we kind of press go with getting the brochure and stuff done, or does that happen afterwards?
We recommend that you do so after the position is posted, because with our process, we recommend that you, as a board, should be laser focused on what your priorities are in line with your strategic plan. And once it's posted, a part of the package is an automatic community input virtual survey that's done if you choose. And that gives anonymous feedback based on those same key indicators. Once that analysis is completed, we give it back to you saying, here's what your public said. And here are the stakeholder groups that responded. Were they employees? Were they business leaders, faith-based, clergy, employees, students, et cetera? You get the idea. And it tells you what they said in the analysis. We suggest that you use that analysis as you prepare to go into your interview phase. Julia mentioned that we also provide item banks of questions based on your profile. That item bank of questions will also be aligned with those PCL standards, because in that first round interview, it's very structured in terms of you asking questions attached to and aligned with those PCL standards. So to your point, it is our recommendation to get any of that input once that position is posted. Okay. Prior to, if you choose to modify that and you want to do it prior to, again, you're in the driver's seat with that. We only make those recommendations based on the things we just said, because what we don't want you to do is allow the process to mislead the public about how this decision-making should roll out about hiring of a superintendent.
Sure.
So we want you to be crystal clear with your stakeholders that we want your input, we want your feedback about what we need to be considering, and we will use that as we interview and hire the people based on what you have said, in addition to the things we know are important.
And I have one more question. Thank you, because that was very thorough, and this kind of goes along with that. With us, if we're expecting to announce our finalists at an open meeting, should we be expecting that public comment section of that meeting to be where the public is giving us who their pick of who is who, or will they know who the candidates are? Can you kind of give us some guidance of what that will look like?
Right. Public will not know your candidates.
Okay.
Because all that's done in executive session. The public will know your candidates once you announce your finalists, which you can now announce up to 3. Some announce sole finalists, some announce 2, some announce 3. That decision will be made as you take a look at candidates and all of your needs across the district and that kind of thing. So once you're at that point, the public then will see and receive thorough information. We provide you a legally redacted application packet that you will post on your link on your website to give the public that extensive information about the finalist, single, or finalist, plural, that you have selected. And they will also have seen how their input and feedback has aligned to your decision-making, because we also recommend that you post that analysis on your website as well. So they'll see a clear alignment with that information, and you keep them updated throughout. But to your question, the public receives that information when you announce those finalists.
Ms. Hensley?
So as we're trying to figure out what direction we're going to go in with this process, what is the cost to our district to use GSBA for this process?
The amount is $15,000 for your district, and size in terms of students. It's based on student FTEs, but it's $15,000 no matter how long it takes you in terms of the timeline. We're there to support you throughout, because sometimes boards want to do second, third rounds and that kind of thing. So that doesn't add to cost. The only other additional that could come would be reimbursing staff for mileage or lodging or candidates, because when your candidates are coming from outside of the state, we also recommend that you make decisions about, are you going to reimburse candidates for round-trip airfare and one night's lodging. That's the prerogative of the board in terms of decision-making with that. But total price is $15,000 plus any other ancillary costs that could come with that, which is minimal. So, and that will be in the agreement. If you all decide that you want to use us, we send an agreement that comes from our HR and financial department to the chair, and the chair can share with your attorney, and you'll see that those pieces are in that plan. All of that virtual community input piece that I mentioned is a part of that. It's not optional. If you decide to do additional meetings face-to-face, we've had a couple of districts that want to do that, like focus groups after the position is posted. If you want to do that, that's when some additional costs will come into play with that, and that'll be reflected in that agreement to show you what that looks like. But that should give you a great idea about what this entails.
Other questions? No? Dr. Yeager?
I'm really intrigued by your discussion of the transition plan and those first 90 days and how research suggests that that's a pretty critical time. Could you elaborate just a little bit on that? I know
Yes.
it's probably in the reading, but I
It
haven't.
is. It's a,
I'm sorry, it's really loud in my earpiece, so I'll take my earpiece off. I'm asking, the transition plan looks really interesting and a really important gift of this, or from you
Yeah.
to this process, and could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. Research is pretty clear about that first 100 days and how that entry and preparation to develop 100-day entry plans indicate, in many cases, the success of a governance team, meaning the board and the superintendent working together in an aligned fashion, and you've heard all this right before, right? In an aligned fashion to meet what you consider your priorities, your mission, your vision, all those things. So what I did not mention is that during that second round of interviews, when the candidates present to you in executive session, part of their presentation as a requirement and an expectation that they talk to you about their initial intent of that alignment, and they'll give you a presentation of here's what my 100-day entry plan would look like based on our conversation thus far, because you will have already had a first round discussion with those candidates and narrowed it down. So you will have heard that in executive session already. And so following that, with those multiple conversations, you're going to make decisions about finalists. That then gets you to the point of announcing your permanent choice. What we're recommending is that once that happens, you come together in a public meeting, because now you're not in executive session. You've announced your choice. You're talking, you're doing the work before the public. So the new candidate is with, new superintendent is with you and the board, and then now presenting that 100-day plan that is no surprise to you because you will have heard it before, but to talk about how they are going to work to meet those priorities that you are outlining. How will they begin that process during the first 30 days, the second, and the third set of 30 days? Obviously, in most cases, the candidate is not going to be able to resolve or solve any issues or challenges that you have fully during that first 100 days. However, the way that they begin to gather information, listening and learning tools with your external audience and your employees is going to be important. And so that gives you somewhat of the idea, but the research aligns with that in terms of making sure that that candidate is working to meet the needs that the board has provided.
Ms.
Can I
Davis?
just follow up just real quick?
Okay.
So you're not actively engaging with the candidate during those 90 days. Your process is just to facilitate
Correct.
the discussion of those 90 days during the second interview and then during the
right.
afterwards when the person is hired. Okay, thank
Right.
you.
There's
That
a
makes more sense.
There's a conversation during that second round. Then once the candidate is announced, then there's a public conversation to report that out. And so sometimes, for example, during that first set of 30 days, if it consists of a listening and learning opportunity, which it will, then that candidate will be reporting back to you. Here's what I've heard, aligned to your priorities. As a result, here are the next steps. So that's a facilitated process that we offer for you if you'd like to do that. So that's a part of the process as well. Julie?
The other thing that we do is we allow for a 3-hour whole board governance training with your new superintendent, where they can then reflect also on that 100-day plan. We like to see it happen within the first 100 days. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But this is another way of trying to make sure that we can help shepherd you through that process so that you're still working as an aligned team with your newest member.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you. I think that explanation probably answered my question. I think in one of your responses, it triggered a concern about how long do you stay with us through the process. And so there is follow-up after the decision is made. There is communication after the decision is made.
Yes, but
That's
I will
excellent.
remind you that is not something that is required.
Right.
It's an optional component for you, but it's not an additional cost. But it's something that we would recommend to you to do. Sometimes boards feel like they've had such an extensive time period of doing that they don't need that anymore. So what we'll be suggesting is that if you decide to move forward with that, we'll provide that, facilitate the support. But you're in the driver's seat. We don't dictate that.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions for GSBA? I had just one question. The three up to three finalists component of that, I guess that's new to me. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Are there instances where one or several of those finalists request privacy and ask that their names not be presented until the ink is dried?
That's not going to be possible. Let me explain to you why.
Okay.
Because by law in Georgia, once you get to the finalist announcement point, remember I said you can announce up to 3. It's up to you in terms of your decision making once you are at that point. However, the association prior to your announcement has to consult those individuals to get permission and agreement to be publicly announced.
Gotcha.
Because that's when all of that sensitive information, not legally sensitive in terms of not being allowable to go forward to the public, that won't go forward. But that's at the point that all the information in reference to those finalists will go forward. And then that 14-day clock begins to tick. Sometimes what you'll find, though, will be if you have sitting superintendents or deputies or cabinet level individuals, they prefer that they're sole finalists. And they'll ask questions prior to agreeing to go public. And if they do, and they request that the sole finalist piece, we notify the board. And the board makes a decision as to whether you're at the point where you want to go 2 or 3 or 1. So that's where the decision making comes in. They have to give permission to go public with it.
Okay.
And if they don't want, if they deny that, then they can't go forward.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
What you may find is that if somebody, in this case, realizes they are not the sole finalist, then they may say, if I am not the sole finalist, then I would like for my name to be withdrawn. So you may start out thinking you're going to have 3 finalists, and you may end up with 1. So but that's part of that process that if we're selected, we can talk to you more about that. But it's a sensitive issue, particularly for folks that are in sitting positions already, which many of them are.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
very quickly, that's a reason, another significant piece as you make your decisions, because some of the maybe horror stories that you've seen and heard about searches center on that in terms of when a candidate has gone public prior to giving agreement. So you have to be laser focused on what the law allows and does not allow. And that's why being aligned with Georgia law is very important with that. And so we keep you abreast of that before anything goes public
Okay.
and the confidentiality.
Okay. Thank you so much. I don't think anyone else had any questions, so yeah, I think we are going to move on, and we really appreciate you for coming all the way out here and presenting to us, and we will definitely follow up with you after we've met and made some decisions on how we're going to move
Thank you for the
forward.
opportunity, and if you have questions, just reach out.
All right, will do.
Good evening to you.
All right, we are ready now to move to item 4, and that's the president's report. I don't have much to report, but I do want to remind us that we have an ad hoc committee for the renaming policy. So however you all are going to move forward as a committee, if you just let us know when you've made the decision of how you're going to sort of comport yourself as a committee, that would be super helpful. Like what your timeline might look like and how you might want to proceed with presenting your revised recommendations to the district's legal team and all of that. So just kind of, yeah. Oh, if you already have an answer, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So what I'm going to do is myself, Ms. Davis, and Dr. Yeager, we're going to coordinate with Mr. Pruitt and Dr. Scott through Lisa to meet here in the district office. And then Dr. Scott can get the folks that she needs from her side. We'll all sit down. We will talk through the process. I think that it's probably going to take us probably a meeting. I think that we all have an idea of how this really needs to work and move forward. And so when that happens, I'll let Ms. Palmer know, and I'll also let you know, ma'am. And then we will make that available to the public so that they can come and observe.
Wow, thank you. You all have already sort of organized yourselves. That's awesome. Okay, and then the last thing that I had was just a moment to acknowledge that this is Dr. Hooker's last meeting with the board. So looking over here, we're all, of course, we were devastated when we heard of your retirement, but we wish you the best, and we have had a wonderful 2 years together, and you did some remarkable work with the district and with the board. You've always supported and worked with us on all of the things that we felt were really important for the district and vice versa. So we really appreciate everything that you've done. And we wish you the best in your retirement. So, thank you. Yes. But you're going to be here at 7 o'clock, so this is not technically your last meeting. Okay. All right, and that was it for me. But we do have to affirm our compliance to policies BH and BHA during this meeting. So if you could take a look at the board policy BH, the board code of ethics is in our agenda, as well as policy BHA, the board member conflict of interest, is also in our agenda. So if you could have a review of that between now and 7 o'clock, and we will have is that right? We have a vote or just an agreement that we're.
You don't have to do anything. You'll just
Okay.
sign it. I have a form that has to be turned into to Georgia DOE. After you get your hours, you do it every year, and it's just acknowledging that you have read, understand, and follow these 2 policies.
Okay, so we'll get that documented sometime between now and 7.
No.
Nope.
No, it has to be turned in by September 30th.
Okay.
So I'll get it prepared. I had
Okay.
to get everybody's hours. I had to go through GSBA because it's all on one document. So it's just when you affirm it tonight and say you've read it, then I'll have you sign off on it when I present it to you. I'll give it to you in August.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that sounds good.
Thanks.
And we did see, everyone, that we have successfully completed our hours for the year, so woo-hoo, go us, go team. Oh, Ms. Bagby, you had a hand up. Okay.
Yes, I want to know where we are on the agenda because my calendar states that we're supposed to meet at 6 today, and it seems like we're already here at 5 or something, so.
Yes, our work sessions are always at 5 o'clock. I think you were maybe thinking about the hearings that were happening, the 3 hearings that we had, and they all started at 6, but our work session always begins at 5. So we are at item 5. we just finished up item 4, which is the compliance with policies BH and BHA, which are Board Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest. And now that we have affirmed that we have read and comply with those 2 policies, we are moving on to item 5, Ms. Bagby, and that is to review the policies that are presented on the agenda. Do you need a moment to find that space?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now we are at item 5, and that is to review several policies. We've got approval of revisions for policy CD, and that is line and staff relations. Are there any questions on that policy? Okay. Policy BCBF, rules of order. All right, fantastic. Policy BC, board meetings. Awesome. And item D is for future policies. So these first 3, we read through them twice. I think we've done 2 readings already, so we're good on those. We'll move them to the agenda for vote. And then for future policies, I did have a note of some that were brought up at our last meeting, but I don't have my notes here with me, so I will circle back with Ms. Bonez on those policies and see where she is on them. I think one of them was school nutrition, and something else, I can't remember.
Ms. Palmer has a comment.
In the previous board update for May 30th, Ms. Bonez put in EEE. I think she had that was the policy that Mr. Denson, and I think there was some information about that in the board update that was sent on May 30th.
Okay. So if we could review the May 30th board update, and if you have any follow-up questions, you can let Ms. Bonez know. Thank you for that. Obviously, we have not looked at our board update from May 30th. Okay. Now we are at item 6, and that is our business items for discussion for the consent agenda. Yes, Dr. Gant?
Can we just go back a moment with the future policies for review? Which policy was the one that we discussed at the board retreat, but it was related to, the district was going to go back and take a look at it. It was related to like questioning students. Do you remember? And we sort of talked a little bit about the difference between investigation and interrogation.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. And I'm trying to remember if it came back around at our last meeting.
Yeah.
Ms. Palmer, do you know if it came up at our last meeting? Oh, I think there was, at our last meeting, man, my memory is shot, but I think it came up and we were looking at amending like 2 or 3 words to make it not an exception, but the rule that someone had to be present when a student was being interrogated. I believe that that's where we left it.
Okay. I may have, yeah, my memory's a little fuzzy. So I may have, I can't even remember. I can't remember if I was here for that discussion, but I know the one that we had at the retreat, the district was going to go back and take a look and just sort of consult with the necessary departments that would be involved to see what their thoughts would be.
Yeah.
But I just can't remember the name of the policy. I can go back and take a look. But it's fine, maybe. I was just, so it hasn't come back up. We haven't taken
I don't think we've
okay.
taken any action on it since the meeting, but
Okay.
I do believe that it did come back to the discussion at the board. We're going to have
JCAB,
JCAB.
and it was the one, it was, I don't know if it was that one or not.
Dr. Anderson, I
Yes.
feel like along with what you and Dr. Gant were saying. It was around the word interrogation versus questioning, and we were looking at kind of the context of who did that apply to. Was it certain agencies? Was it just school-based personnel? Was it people outside of the school? So I kind of remember it being around the word questioning versus interrogation and trying to get some understanding to make it,
Oh, okay.
yeah, if that's helpful.
And I'm sorry, Ms. Palmer has pulled that policy up. It's on the board before us. LDJA. Is that-
LDAJA. And
And so maybe, the reason why I asked about it under D is if the board is open, wanting to sort of put that back on our radar, but if it was at the last meeting, then I guess that would be sort of, it wouldn't be necessary if the board had already discussed it.
Mr. Evans, do you want us to kind of go back and look at our previous meeting to see if this was resolved, and then we can get back to Dr. Gant? And if it wasn't, we'll throw it back on the agenda for our August meeting. I do see number 3 where it says a student may not be released to the custody of persons other than the parent or legal guardian. I think that was a discussion item. And then any interrogation must be done in private with an official school representative present. So those changes were the changes that we had discussed at our retreat. I think reflected those 2 items, and they are different. So I think this was resolved. But again, I don't know. Let us do some homework, and then we'll come back to you and let you know. If it needs to come back on the agenda, it'll come back on the agenda. Okay. I'm sorry, let me go back to my meetings. Was that the only item for future discussion that you all had? Okay. And then, Mr. Denson, you'll take a look at EEE and see if you're satisfied with it and get back with Ms. Bones. Perfect. Okay. Now we are
Chair?
at, yes, Dr.
Quick question.
Yes.
Where are we at in our sort of 5-year review process? It feels like we got a little derailed from that process in the last 3 to 4 months. We've stopped kind of reviewing and assessing the policies that are all expiring 2021. Are we still moving forward on that?
Dr. Scott?
Yes, that is still in process, so it has not stopped. And so the ones that have been coming forward are the ones that are up for review.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I'm assuming in August, we'll probably have a batch of expiring 2020, yeah. Okay, so I guess that answers everyone's questions. We good? Perfect. Business items for discussion for the consent agenda. So again, I'm just going to go down the list, and if you want it pulled, please just be very vocal, and then we can discuss. May 8th work session and board meeting agenda minutes. Board meeting minutes. Okay, good. Cedar Shoals. Yes, Ms. Davis?
I don't want it pulled, but there was a correction. I think that we had one board member's name twice, and we omitted maybe. Did you catch that one? Thank you. Okay. That's all I saw. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. Item B, Cedar Shoals Projectors Phase 2. We're good. C, the 25-26 SRO agreement with CCSD and ACC Gov. Mr. Denson? Paul? Okay, do you have any questions for consideration?
Yeah, just similar to still going back to where we had this discussed previously, and then it was pulled. Mainly that I'm still a little bit curious on why we are not using the ACC Govs, why they're not contributing this year. Their normal $110,000 that we only have to pay. Yeah, we're paying the full amount instead of splitting the cost with ACC Gov as we have in the past.
And Mr. Denson, we had a long discussion with, at that time, the city manager was Griffin, I believe, along with myself, Mr. Pruitt, Dr. Scott, Chief Reed, Lieutenant Johnson, as well as their commanding officers concerning this contract. We went back and forth concerning this, and if you looked at the revised document, we took all of those into considerations. We even had Judd Drake, even today, to go back and look at some of the final documents here. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Pruitt, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Denson, your question stated, why aren't they paying? If I'm not mistaken, they do pay these SRO officers. We pay for the 184 days, that $110 a year, it's not $110,000 you're talking about. They work the rest of the season until school starts back, so they have a part of their salaries as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pruitt, am I right in saying that?
So first, it actually wasn't Mr. Drake, because, you know, he stepped into the interim manager role. It was an attorney, and another attorney in the office that I
Okay.
dealt with today. But he talked to Chief Salter, and what you've got there is what the attorney's office has agreed to. In that meeting, I haven't seen the numbers, but the ACC said that they had done the computations, and they actually have about $600 and something thousand in just direct personnel costs for providing these SROs. So also the old contract, one of the revisions, the old contract talked about reimbursement of expenses, but that's not been the practice, it turns out. It's just been a quarterly billing for 1/4 of the cap amount, so this has just got a flat amount to be billed quarterly, so the new contract actually reflects the practice.
Okay, yeah, I guess the confusion is because I was at this mayor commission meeting, and at the meeting, they were getting ready to vote on their contract of us only contributing $350,000 and them contributing $110,000 for a total of $460,000. And then at the meeting, they pulled the item because they said that they had heard that we were going to pay the full amount, so they tabled it. And that's whenever I sent the email to the full board and superintendent, everybody asking what was going on and why we were paying the full amount. And the agreement doesn't state that they will no longer, they're not splitting the cost. It does not state that they are splitting the cost as the previous agreements have for the last 5 years that I could find that we've signed for them. So we're voting on the budget later on, and I know we're trying to pinch our pennies and stuff, so $110,000 is a lot of money of a difference that seems to be somewhere lost exactly. If the mayor commission had gone ahead and voted, we'd be paying $110,000, $120,000 less, and I'm just not sure what happened where that vote got all of a sudden paused, then the agreement got changed, and now we're paying a considerably larger amount.
So Dr. Hooker has asked me to respond. So I don't know where the $110,000 number came from. Again, I've told you all I remember from the meeting. They're actually subsidizing a lot more than that. They'll be subsidizing a little less now, but still be subsidizing whatever the difference is between that $600 and something thousand number and the 470. Is that what's in here?
Yes, it's 470 in the contract.
Yeah. And of course, they also provide uniforms, cars, equipment, sorts of things that would be impossible to quantify because they're not used up within a school year. So as best I recall, they said the 600 and something number I'm remembering was just direct personnel and doesn't include those add-ons.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't doubt all those other costs are there. Just, I guess 2020, we paid $325, 2022, $325, 2023, $325, then $350 last year, and now we're paying $470. And at least according to their agenda that they're going to be voting on in August, they're now going to be, their contribution will be zero, and ours will be the full contribution. So I don't know. Somehow that over $100,000 seems to have been shifted over to our responsibility. And it is definitely an important thing, as I think probably some of us have seen what's going on in Barrow County right now, where the Barrow County Mayor Commission pulled their SRO support, putting the full weight onto the school district. The community has been very upset about that. Now the Mayor Commission is backpedaling, and they are going back to splitting the cost. So it's a very, current situation that we're kind of also experiencing here.
So, without belaboring this conversation, I guess I'm a little confused as to what has been said. So according to Attorney Pruitt, ACC government does actually contribute to the SRO contract with regards to personnel, equipment, and other things. So they're paying a substantially more than the $110,000 that would have been in whatever language of the previous contract. That's what I'm hearing them say, but what I'm hearing you say is that you're unhappy that we're having to do $470,000 versus $350 last year.
So I sent an email with all the documents to everybody on May 7th, which is whenever this got pulled off of the agenda for May. And it goes, I tried to put it very much in detail. And again, like, the thing that's concerning me, ACC Gov was getting ready to pay a portion of this, $110,000, so that we would only be obligated for $350,000. That's what they had agreed to. But now what we're voting on is that we're going to be paying an additional $120,000 from what ACC Gov was even proposing for us to do.
Okay, I got you. Ms. Holt, did you have a question?
I did, because I'm just trying to process the concern, even if what, Mr. Danson, even if that is true, even if we did absorb $110,000 extra, would, if they're still subsidizing $600,000 in cost, wouldn't it still be the best decision for us to move forward to absorb that 110 and not risk having to absorb the full weight of supporting that? Like, I don't want to put our energy into arguing about something if we would continue to support it, or the concern would kind of be eliminated.
Well, what I was stating is that the Mayor and Commission on May at their voting session were not asking us to pay $600,000. They were asking us to pay $350,000. I understand that there might have been other things, but I'm just not sure. Our ask, what we were agreeing to pay is larger than what they were asking us to pay.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, at that point, they had the wrong contract that they were discussing with their commission, because we had this discussion with Brinkley, Salters, and others where we agreed to increase the price. I believe their commissioners had the wrong contract, and if I'm not mistaken, that was discussed even before they spoke with their commissioners. We had agreed to raise the price. So they had the wrong contract that they were discussing during their meeting.
Okay. If everyone's clear on what has happened, what has transpired, I am not. I just want to be very honest. I have absolutely no idea what is going on right now. So, but we do have an SRO contract that we can either keep on the consent agenda or we can pull and vote individually. So which would you all prefer to do, given the absolute confusion of the conversation that just took place?
Pull.
Okay. We'll move on. HVAC change order for the summer 25 HVAC work at Barrow, Fowler, Timothy, and Winterville. Consent. District Services Warehouse HVAC. Consent. District Services Warehouse Civil and Paving. Civil?
Yeah, that was a typo, right?
Yeah.
What does the civil mean? I saw that.
I don't know. Warehouse Civil and Paving Package. Oh, okay. I think it's the name of the...
The civil refers to the stormwater management, underground detention, things like that we have to put in. So in addition to paving, there's erosion control measures, stormwater piping, things like that we have to install.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting name.
All right. Keeping it on the consent agenda. Awesome. District-wide school radios. Consent. Barrow Elementary Outdoor Classroom. Consent. 2024-25 Head Start, Early Head Start budget revisions and in-kind waiver. Review and approve intent to apply. Dr. Gant?
I have a question about the Barrow
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I saw on there where they were using a combination of PTO funds with their LSGT funds as well. And I know that at some point, Dr. Hooker and Dr. Scott, at some point, I know we had like a list of how all of the schools use their LSGT funds.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if it was a way that you could redirect us to that list. I can't remember what year it was, but if we could have an updated, just report on how schools are using their LSGT funds.
Sure, and if I'm not mistaken, we gave that, I'm looking to you, Mr. Griner, did we share that with the board earlier this school year?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I knew we had from our LSTT meeting, we had, Stephen Nobles does a LSTT University, and in that meeting, it's all the LSTT participants, and I knew one of the participants asked for a list of projects.
Correct.
So I knew Ms. Frazier in my department compiled that list. I think we just need to update that, but we can definitely share that with y'all. We shared it with our LSTT member who asked for it, but I think that's as far as it went, Dr. Hooker, but we can.
Okay, maybe that was, all the LSG teams have that outlay, but we'll be glad to share that with you as well.
Yeah, we just need to update it, because I don't think it's fully updated for this fiscal year, but we can do that, Dr. Gant. We can get that to you in the next few weeks, so, thank you.
All right. And it's okay to keep it on the consent, okay. Let's see, so we were at item I, 24-25 Head Start, Early Head Start budget revisions and in-kind waiver, review and approve intent to apply. Are we good? Okay. The grade 2 Chromebooks.
I just have a question.
Uh-oh. To item I or?
To J.
Okay, yep.
Grade 2. It's just a quick question. Is this new? I thought that they were at iPads, so now second grade having Chromebooks. Did we increase or expand our technology reach?
I'll have Mr. Taylor Duke come to answer your question.
Good evening. iPads are K and 1, 2 through 12 are Chromebooks.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
iPads are used in grades K in first grade.
iPads are kindergarten and first grade, and
Correct.
Chromebooks are second grade and up.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking it was third grade and up. Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
And just really quick, these are for general use, or testing with the second graders, so they get an individual Chromebook.
Both.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Okay, and then last is our field trips. All right, we're good. Okay, now we are ready, so we pulled one item, and that was the SRO contract.
Could we pull the Chromebooks as well?
Oh, you want to pull that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we're pulling two items, the Chromebooks and the SRO, CCSD SRO contract. Ms. Palmer, are you, okay. Now we are on item 7. Did you have?
Yes, can I say something? I just wanted to go back to the SRO contract, and what took place there is we went over our cap of $350,000 last year with ACC, and they had to pay that out, so we included that in this contract to raise it to $470. So we upped it to include more dollars to cover overtime for the employees. That's what took place there. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That is super helpful. Thank you for adding that as clarification. Okay, so
I just have
yes, Ms. Davis?
quick clarification on that. Okay, so this budget or this contract that we're approving is for 25-26?
Yes.
Okay, and does it include the proposed increase in SROs?
No, we're hiring, the
That's totally
proposal is totally separate. That
Thank
would
you.
include our own officers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was confused there for a minute.
Okay. All right, so we still have those two items pulled, and now we are going to move on to financial updates, April and May financial reports. Mr. Griner?
that was on. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So we have 2 months. We were able to get May completed. So since we're not having a July board meeting, we'll do April and May tonight. So the first one I'll go over is April. So you see our total revenues were $23.8 million. Some of that is an accrual we do because of the state. It's an accounting mechanism. That's why that number is so much larger than it typically is. It's not really a cash transaction. It's just an accounting mechanism with the state to cover the 2 months of salaries we have in the summer for our 190-day employees. So it's just an accounting. It happens every year. But we do budget that into our budget. So we were $1.2 million over in revenues. Actual for the year in April, we were about $500,000 more than our budgeted amount. I feel like, and we'll talk about that when we get to May, I feel like we're going to be about $1.5 million to $2 million higher on our revenue side. But remember, the budget had us taking out about $6.7 million out of reserve, so that would be beneficial. I kind of factored that into the fund balance that we put into the proposed budget as well. Actual expenditures for April were a little over $20 million, about $650,000 higher than our budgeted. For the year, we were in April about $1.7 million more than budgeted. I will say that budget, I'm going to do this a little differently next year. I kind of used a straight line method on the budget where I just took and divided by 12, kind of got an average. I feel like there's certain months we do spend more money than other months. Some of it depends on when we get our federal funding. We're still trying to spend our general fund money and try to combine some of that funding together. So I'm going to try to do a better job of projecting the expenditure budget next year. So I think all in all, we're going to end up, total expenditures are going to be right about or a little bit less than what we budgeted. So I'm not concerned by that. I think it's just, again, the way I projected out the budget, like on a monthly basis. Fund balance, at the end of April, we had about $93.1 million. And again, budgeted was about 94.4, and that's kind of explained above with the expenditures. Do you want me to continue on with May and then see if we have any questions on both of them?
Yes, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Let's see. Yep. Thank you. See, actual revenues for May, we were about $8.9 million, which is pretty much average with our state QBE money and then the property tax money that we still have small amounts coming in this time of year. So we're about $400,000 more than our budgeted for the year. That puts us at about $887,000 higher. Again, expenditures were a little over $20 million, which was about $700,000 more. So we're at about $2.2 million. Again, I feel like June typically slows down a little bit with our spending. Of course, school's out. So I feel like we will end up where we budgeted. Our expenditures are close to that, and then revenues will be a little bit higher than we anticipated. So at the end of May, we had a fund balance of $82 million. I feel like we're still trending down to $55 million. Keeping in mind, I think I mentioned this in other board meetings, that part of our July payroll actually goes back into the prior fiscal year for our 190-day employees. Their contract runs from August 1st to July 31st. So we actually still have 2 more months of payroll, and that's where that fund balance will start to go down. It's for that reason. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. But financially, I think we're targeting that $55 million in fund balance that we put into the budget. So.
Thank you. Other questions on the April and May reports? Okay. All right. Let's see. We are now at the FY26 final budget.
Okay. We've had the 3 budget hearings, so I'm just going to kind of touch on, I'm going to get Ms. Palmer to pull up the slide presentation. I added a budget highlight slide. Thank Dr. Anderson for her input last night. So kind of just came up with one. It's the same presentation roughly, except it has the budget highlights. I felt like this was a good way just to kind of capture. The first thing, it is a balanced budget. So total expenditures equal total revenues. Total general fund budget of almost $255 million, about a $13 million, a little over $13 million increase over FY25. As I mentioned last night, $11.8 million of that is in salary and benefits, with $8.5 million being state mandates that related to health insurance and TRS. Certified health insurance, we do get some of that, most of that back through the QBE funding formula, but keeping in mind our classified employees, that health insurance increase, which is the largest increase this year, it's about 22, I think it's $22,620 a year that we can subsidize for that insurance for certified and classified. The state provides no funding for that classified health insurance. We do have a step increase if applicable for all employees. I kind of talked through that last night. The three main things we were able to add because we had a little bit higher tax digest increase than we anticipated were the additional security officer positions that we're recommending, 3 certified, 14 non-certified or unarmed. The unarmed would give us coverage at each elementary school. Deferred maintenance, we added back in $1 million to cover roof repairs and any other projects that will be needed, but the main focus of that is on roof repairs. And then the addition of the sustainability coordinator per the recommendation of the sustainability committee. And if there's any other questions, I'll be glad. I just felt like this slide kind of captures everything.
Yes, and thank you for adding that one line,
Thank
that
you
one
for
bullet.
your input last night. So, as I was adding that, I was like, I'll just do a highlight. So,
Okay, are there questions on the budget that's been proposed to move forward to the board for a vote? If you have questions, comments, concerns, now is the time.
yes, ma'am, Ms. Bagby.
So, right now, we're on B, and we're going to be voting on B, and then we're going to go to C and vote on that. Is that correct?
B and C. I see what you're saying. Yes, right
On the
now we
7th.
are, that's right. Right now we are on B, the final budget.
Okay, so, well, I have to make a comment because I discussed B and C with constituents. I had asked at the other meeting if I could share the financial part of our sessions with the constituents, and I think Mr. Evans as well as Mr. Griner said it's okay because it's on the website. So some of the people that I talked to do not want us to approve this, although they didn't come to any of the meetings, because they said there's no end to the spending, and Mr. Griner said that we have an increase of $13 million for the next budget, more than we had last year, so we're spending $255 million for the budget, and I was informed, I know by the president that I cannot abstain. I have to say yes or no, so I'm going along with the constituents that I don't approve this budget. So my vote is no on these. And if I'm out of order, it's still no, so. And one more thing while I'm speaking, because I've been very, very quiet the whole time that I have been on this board since January, and I have had some difficulties with some of this technology, and I would say that I am more uninformed than ill-informed, but I purpose to take the month of July to prepare myself better to perform in August from now on, and I will seek outside help to be more efficient, proficient, and effective on this board, because I do not feel that I have had quite the help that I should have received. So, but for these two, because I have talked with other people in the community, and so they said there's no end to the spending. They even talked about how the police department have car shows every year, and they buy different cars, and they have a contest for who has the best car, and that's money. I saw one today was quite amazing, one of these four-door trucks with just fancy stuff, and so the constituents are quite concerned about the budget, and so, like you said, we have added another $13 million this year, so
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, just also, we don't vote on these right now. They're going to be voted on at our regular board meeting starting at 7. So if you do want your vote, Ms. Bagby, on public record, it's going to have to be at the regular board meeting. Okay. Are there other questions? Dr. Gant?
Yes, just two. One was related to one that I asked earlier on in the process when we first started looking at the tentative budget, but it was related to the stipends for the teachers. Is that included in this budget? Like for the stipends for like like spending. Like it was at one of our earlier meetings, I inquired about it, and I know some of them had not been spent or something like that, and we talked just briefly around how they had to use like the same like vendor, and that there may have been some improvements that could have been made to that. So I was just curious, is that a part of this budget?
I think, is it the supply stipend that we included last year?
Mm-hmm.
We decided just, honestly, I can't remember now because it's been since December, January. I think we ended up allocating about a little over 300,000. Only about 170 or 80,000 of that was actually spent by our teachers. So we ended up allocating that money back to the schools where they could use just for the entire school. So that's what we did. We did not include it in this year's budget because we just didn't have much luck with it last year. So this year, what we have is the same thing we've had for years, where we give each school a per FTE amount, and then the school, the principal or the leadership at the school has the ability then to kind of source out those funds as they see needed. But I mean, it's something we could definitely revisit. We use Class Wallet. I think we did a survey. Class Wallet it's the one the state used many years ago. It's probably the easiest one. We tried to limit the vendors because there are some vendors, like if you go to Amazon, you can buy stuff that's not school related. You go to Walmart, you can buy stuff that's not school related. We tried to limit it to school related resources. That's something we could definitely consider again, but it is not, to answer your question, Dr. Gant, we did not include it in this year's budget, just for that reason last year.
Okay. And the second thing would be, I know when we were reading through this with the fund balance that we have, you mentioned that ideally it would be 3 to 6 months, and we have like, I guess a conservative estimate would be, you said the 2.59.
That's correct.
I guess the district is comfortable with it being just perhaps right below 3, given like the uncertainties that we have ahead of us with vouchers and not quite knowing with other, how other programs may be affected.
Right. I think the other thing with looking at the fund balance, the 2.6 is the total budget. I think Dr. Hooker had mentioned, and I've heard this before as well, he went to a training, I think it was last year. Really, you want 3 months of payroll at least. We do have 3 months of payroll in fund balance. It's the other operating, once you factor it in, puts us a little bit below that 3-month average. We still have roughly close to 22%. Old state guidance, and we've talked about this a lot, is 15%. I don't think that applies anymore in the times we're in. As you mentioned with the uncertainties we're in, I think the 15% was an old rule. I think if you look at other districts around us, they're 20, 25, somewhere in there. I think we're comparable to other districts. I will say this, Mr. Denson mentioned Barrow County, and some of this was in regards to the SRO. They lowered their millage rate a few years ago. I think that was the year before I came, and a lot of our taxpayers were upset because they lowered their millage rate so much in Barrow. Well, they've had to increase it the last 2 years, so slightly. So I think again, look at other districts. I think they have relatively the same fund balance we have, but I think Barrow's had some, and I think theirs is actually a little bit larger than ours still right now. But I do try to track we actually had a great report Dr. Hooker shared that one of the executive directors of a RESA group did that kind of showed FY24 fund balances across the state, and that's where he had some great talking points in there, and that's where he said the average is 3 to 6 months. And that's where we got the information. The state has, about 4.75, I think, months of reserves. So I think if you hear a lot in the legislative session talk about fund balance, so I appreciate you asking that question.
All right, Mr. Denson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Reiner, and following up on those questions about, the 15%, as you stated, kind of being the old standard. I do wonder, because I think maybe this is where some of the public's perception comes from. I wonder if we can update our monthly budget presentation graph on the fund balance projection, because it shows the gray line going across in which it's stated as reserve goal percentage, which is set at 15%. Right. So if a person, without knowing all of this kind of thing and the changes, if a person was to look at this graph, they're going to say the school district is consistently well above what the reserve goal is. You know. So I wonder if we could update that, change that to if, you know, if your office or, you know, the administration wants to come up with, you know, if it's the 3-month, then we know what, you know, maybe stating that instead of the, because yeah, I can see why some people would, you know, get upset with that.
That's a great point. And I think that was, those graphs were, I think when Mr. Schiedemann was still here, and again, it was based off that. I think it was Greene County School CFO a couple of years ago, I heard him say something, I was like, you know, that makes a lot of sense. I think he was talking about the 15%, and I think, you know, he was talking about, you know, the taxpayers were talking about the reserves, and he said, yeah, and going back to classified health insurance, that used to be fully subsidized by the state of Georgia. So now we no longer get any subsidy at all from the state of Georgia for classified health insurance. I think that was kind of his point when I say times have changed. He's like, yeah, it's not that, because when I started in 2011, the state was basically, they pretty much paying for all the classified health insurance. So, those items, but that's a great point, and we can definitely update those for next year.
All right, are there other questions? Yes, Mr. Evans.
Oh, hey, Chris. So let's go back to this 13 million, right, that we're increasing. What if we decide we don't do it? What if we just say we're not going to do it? We're not going to pay that. What's the penalty? What's the problem with us saying no, we're not going to fund that?
The 13 million just in total?
Yeah.
I mean, the way that, and part of that 13 million, again, is $8.5 million of that is state. You know, Dr. Erger and I had this conversation because at the beginning of the budget season, we were like, let's see if we can, you know, possibly reduce our total expenditures. And I think we had that conversation. It's hard to decrease when the state keeps handing out mandates that we started out 241 last year. We're already at 250 before we ever started the budget process. So I think that was, without that 13 million, you're just looking at taking out of reserves and going back to Dr. Gantt's question, then you're really getting into really uncertain times with some of the items we mentioned, federal spending or federal program, federal spending, and then also the voucher system.
So it sounds like we don't really have a choice, right? I mean, we're just kind of, this is what you're going to do. So another unfunded mandate?
It's really hard to, I mean, Dr. Hooker, and we've had the departments give their budget presentations. We tried to reduce operating this year, but again, if we start to reduce too much, we're going to cut into the instructional value we're giving our students. And I know Dr. Hooker and Dr. Scott would both attest to that. You know, I think it's just one of those, and we've been very fortunate with our reserves over the last several years. I've had a chart last year that showed, you know, when the governor also gives a certified raise, where there's also, I won't say pressure, but there really is pressure. There's no funding for the classified side, but, you know, we had this whole discussion last year with the budget. We proposed a lower amount, and I think y'all felt as a board that wasn't fair to our classified staff, and I totally agree. And I think it's just, you know, you look at that kind of situation as well, then that's going to increase your spending as well. Because not only is last year, a lot of the increase was the certified raise, health insurance, TRS, but then we matched it on the classified side. So you're in this cycle. You're really dependent upon what the state does, to be honest. So.
See, yeah, what you're saying is exactly what I thought. I just want to make sure that my thinking was correct, that, you know, we're talking about real money that we actually have to pay, you know, and to make it equitable for everyone to work in the county, we have to pay this money. You know, and so I think it's important that we do that. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and I think I didn't really touch on it this year in the budget. Normally we do. You know, 87% of our expenditures are salary and benefits. So when you start trying to look at reducing the budget, it's taking those personnel, maybe, you know, we have that extra support at the school, whether it be an interventionist or, you know, those kind of positions at the school level that we definitely, I think our leadership in our schools would attest to the fact we need those positions. So I think it's just you start looking at where do you cut on the salary and benefit side? As our operating budget it's roughly 34 million, as Mr. Gilbert said last night. 14 of that's plant services. Well, I mean, we still have some maintenance issues that we need to address with plant services. You know, fortunately, y'all have approved the last couple of years deferred maintenance, which has helped us catch up on some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Davis, I think you've had your hand raised for a while.
It's okay. I don't think it's your question, but do we have a copy of the job description for the sustainability person yet?
I think I knew Dr. Askew had reached out to some other districts. I think we were kind of fine tuning that. I think Mr. Swart, I think from the conversation and the rest of the cabinet can remind me that Mr. Swartz had when he gave him, he's at a conference tonight, so he's not with us. He, I think he was waiting till the job actually got approved, and we were going to fine tune that, I think. Is that
Yes, that's correct. We cannot move forward in doing that until it's approved by the board so that we can do this job description and then move forward.
And the job description would have to be approved by the board, so it would come back in front of the board once it's been drafted by the district.
Yes.
The board has to approve the job description after the fact anyway.
So again, because it's included in the budget that we are going to vote on later, by voting for that amount of money, are we also committing ourselves to that particular position? Or did I miss something?
I think, in my view, oftentimes positions get approved in the budget, they never get filled. I mean, again, as Dr. Anderson said, the job description would have to be approved, so I don't know if Dr. Hooker wants to weigh.
No, you answered her question.
Yeah, the job description would have to be approved, that'd be first, and then we would also have to approve the personnel on top of that as well. So there's several iterations of the board sort of having to have this decision made and voting on it before someone is hired. So I think to answer your question more bluntly, you can approve it on the budget, but the board still has to then approve the position description and the actual person that's hired. So it could remain unfilled if the board does not come to a consensus on those further 2 points.
Right. It's more of a holding piece for that amount of money in the budget is the way I view it. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Other questions on the proposed budget? So I need to kind of feel the room a little bit and make sure that we are in a place where we are comfortable moving forward with placing this on the agenda for our board meeting in 20 minutes, in 15 minutes. Okay. I'm saying mostly okay. So I think from a board consensus standpoint, we'll go ahead and put it on the agenda and we'll see how the votes fall. I'm seeing more yeses than nos, so, okay.
I think you have more yeses than nos, but I also think that I'd love to vote for this budget because I don't want to indicate in any way that I don't support the work that's happening in our district. Again, I just want to be consistent in terms of making sure that I understand when we vote for a budget that does not override the processes that we must go through in order to approve expenditures over a certain amount. I would also like for that to not mean that we also are suggesting that this is a policy or this is a direction that we're taking for any particular reason when the board hasn't really voted on that. And so those are my only objections that I have to the current budget as proposed. So if we have an increase in salaries and benefits for a department, I'm fine with that. Again, to say that it's for sustainability when we haven't done those things, it leads you to believe that we are giving a passive approval.
Mm-hmm.
That concerns me.
Okay. I guess if I were to respond to that, I would argue maybe that passive approval could be some board members' decisions, or very active approval could be some board members' decisions, and there's really no way for us to know that. So it's really just about the consensus of the board at this point, and it looks like we have largely the consensus of the board, and individual reservations are just fine, but, you know, the vote has to speak for itself. Yeah. So, and if there are items that you are just explicitly not comfortable with, it is well within your right to say no. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We are, I think, ready to move on to items 8. Nope, sorry, C, 7C, millage rate.
I wasn't, unless y'all like for me to, I wasn't really going to do a presentation. We've had the 3 millage rate hearings. We've advertised in compliance with the Department of Revenue, ran it by the Tax Commissioner's Office. So the last step is just approving the millage rate, which we're recommending stays at 18.8 mils. You have a resolution that if this is approved at the board meeting that Dr. Anderson will sign, that has to go to Athens Clarke County. It allows them to collect the property taxes for us. It's the same standard resolution. They've already, I believe, passed their budget this week. I knew they were having, from what I've been told, I think they passed their budgets. They're just waiting on us. And if this is approved at the board meeting, we'll take that to their clerk and then they'll file that. I think they actually have to have last year they did a call meeting because they actually have to approve the resolution. I think that came up last year. They do not approve our millage rate. They have to approve the resolution. So it's, we're the only board that can set our millage rate. So they're just approving that resolution and the fact that they can collect the tax for us.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so we've had the 3 hearings. We're good. We'll move that item to the regular board meeting for a vote. All right, so you are done, Mr. Greiner.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we are at item 8, personnel. We've got our personnel list, and then we've got a job description to decide if we're going to move forward to vote on. Are we good? Do you have any? Yeah, do you want us to do executive session for any of this? Okay. All right, so we're going to move this to our board meeting. And then we are now at item 9. We don't need an executive session according to Dr. Hooker. Do you all see a need for executive session? Dr. Gant?
So I have a couple of questions regarding personnel, but it's about the general process. And I am very thankful for the document that was shared that answered a good bit of those questions for me, but I'm trying to figure, I feel like it would be a public conversation, and I'm happy to wait until our board meeting. I understand that we have 10 minutes, about 12 minutes left. And I also have some general questions and perhaps concerns about the job description for the Director of Behavior Supports, and I'm open to sharing those at the meeting as well.
Okay. And Mr. Pruitt, that's a conversation that we can have in public meeting?
Sorry, I was looking up something else. What's the question?
Can we have a conversation about the job description that is on the agenda at the public meeting, or do we have to do that in executive session?
No, you have to do that in open session.
You have to do it in open session.
Right.
And about just sort of the process, like with our personnel list. Well, I just had a few follow-up questions related to the questions that I had asked before. Like the implications, like for the budget, what does this mean for our ESS contract? And just a little bit, just want to discuss a little bit more about that general process with some of our paraprofessionals, their current situations that they're navigating with the certification requirement for paraprofessionals. And so I mean, those are general questions and not about one in particular person, but I just don't know if would they belong in this meeting or executive session.
Can't do that in executive session. Executive sessions, when you're talking about personnel, it has to be specific
To a person.
The compensation, hiring, deliberation, but not taking evidence on discipline.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we can table those for our regular meeting.
Sure.
Okay. We are now moving to item 10 for adjournment, and I don't think we don't need a vote for that in work session. Okay, so we are adjourned, and we will reconvene at 7 o'clock in 10 minutes for our regular board meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Uh-oh.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our June board meeting, our last before the next academic year. So we'll go ahead and get started. Superintendent Hooker, could you take roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Hottie Hensley.
Here.
Ms. Mary P. Bagby. Here. Ms. Linda Davis.
Present.
Dr. Patricia Yeager.
Here.
Mr. Tim Denton.
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant.
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hull.
Here.
And Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, and the whole board is here tonight. Wow, this is awesome. For Dr. Hooker's departure, I guess, we all decided, let's be here. That's awesome. All right, we have a quorum, so we're ready to move forward with the agenda. We will start with our silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance. Just to note, the flag is to your left, behind us here. All right, and we're ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, if you're able. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now everyone's favorite part of the agenda, our awards and recognitions. Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Hooker. Good evening, board members. We have only one recognition for this month, which serves one of our three anchor priorities as a district: optimize talent. And we will give you a small glimpse at the immense amount of educational talent we have in our district. Tonight, we are joined by members from the second cohort of our CCSD Aspiring Leaders Academy. The Aspiring Leaders Academy, in partnership with the Georgia Leadership Institute for School Improvement, or GLISI, is designed to provide participants with the tools and resources necessary to enhance their leadership skills and abilities to help them increase their positive impact on our district. Participants who apply for and are selected to this program gain exposure to school-level and district leaders, build a network of colleagues throughout the district, and participate in practical leadership opportunities. The program operates from our Leading Better Together framework, working to identify and define the essential attributes and skills for effective leadership in CCSD. This framework serves as a guide for developing a pipeline of strong leaders who are prepared to contribute to the growth and success of CCSD, and inspiring them to see the tremendous impact that they can have in their roles, ultimately elevating student achievement and professional growth for educators throughout the district. Last week, 15 educators from our schools and district office completed the year-long program with their capstone presentations. During these presentations, cohort members shared highlights from their leadership stories they wrote during the program, a personal reflection about the impact of the program on their growth, and an area of need in their schools which was used as a focus for their long-term project. Congratulations to these cohort members, who I'll ask to come up as they hear their name. First, we have Jacob Bartu, Special Education Department Leader at Gaines Elementary School. Mr. Bartu, come on up. Kimber Booker, Site Coordinator at our Early Learning Center East location. Sophia Campbell, Science Teacher at Clark Central High School. Desalyn Culver, K-5 Math Curriculum Coordinator for CCSD. Alexandra Edwards, 5th grade teacher at Timothy Road Elementary School. Patrick Ennis, EIP teacher at Fowler Drive Elementary School. Tammy Gamber, instructional coach at Fowler Drive Elementary School. Danielle Harris, assistant principal at Howard B. Stroud Elementary School. Connor Naughton, 8th grade math teacher at Hillsman Middle School. Anna Slocum, instructional coach at Whitehead Road Elementary School. Cameron Strange, 5th grade teacher at Johnny Lay Burks Elementary School. Corey Tarbert, instructional coach at Clark Central High School. Shantae Thompson, assistant principal at Gaines Elementary School. Carla Williams, kindergarten teacher at Cleveland Road Elementary School. And Chris Woodward, 6th grade gifted program teacher at Clark Middle School. We'd also like to invite Dr. Jenny Welsh, Glissy VP of Strategy and Finance, to join us on stage if she's here. I believe she is. There we go. To celebrate the accomplishments of this cohort as we extend our congratulations for their dedication to leadership, learning, and service to our schools and community. And we'll ask you to all stay right there, as I'd like the board to come up, since we're all here together, to stand behind and get a group picture for our Aspiring Leaders Cohort 2. Just fit in the little gap. Yeah, move a little closer together, but leave a little room for somebody to stand behind you, okay? Choose your positioning well, so you're not some may be blocked out. That's perfect. You arranged yourself perfectly. There we go. There you go. All right, we're getting this down. Yay. Wait a minute. We have one more. Right there is perfect, Miss Bagby. All right, smile and say, "We did it." Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight. This concludes this month's recognitions, and now I will turn it back over to Dr. Anderson for any recognitions that you and the board might wish to share. Thank you all again for coming. I know it's summer, but we appreciate it. Dr. Anderson?
Thank you, Dr. Moore. And congratulations, everyone. All right, we are, I think, ready to move on to our public comments. I have 3 here that signed up early. Is there? That's it? Okay. All right. Before we begin our public comment, I will just go ahead and read off the policy. I've got it somewhere. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. Our policy BCBI on public comments. Each individual speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and at this point, remarks must be concluded. No speaker will indulge in personal attacks, and all comments are to be addressed directly to the Board of Education. To protect the privacy of students, speakers shall refrain from identifying specific students by name. No individual or group shall be retaliated against in any manner for speaking during public participation. Personal concerns may be addressed in writing to the superintendent and president of the Board of Education. Written copies of comments may be provided to the board. And at a board meeting, board members will not respond to questions, comments from the public. The district may respond to public input as needed or appropriately within 10 working days. And lastly, the use of obscene, profane, vulgar, physically threatening, or abusive remarks will not be allowed. Loud, boisterous conduct or comments by speakers or members of the audience are also not allowed. All right, we've got 3 folks signed up, and we'll start with Reverend Sandoval.
Dr. Hooker, Dr. Anderson, and the rest of the board member. I'm no stranger here. We started this endeavor back in August of 2024 about renaming the City Shows baseball field. I had a preaching engagement tonight. I counseled. Probably won't get invited back to that church, but that's okay. Because this is more important to me. Simple fact, because James Holston, he modeled me as a young man. Before he passed, he was in the Athens area. He taught at 4 schools. He taught at Athens Industrial, then he taught at Bunny Harris, Clark Central, and then he retired at Cedar Shoals. And like I said, started out last year in August. And then we went to Cedar Shoals and had a forum, and they put it out for 30 days and out into the public. No rejection. And Dr. Clark was just coming on board, and she liked the idea. And so she got behind this. And we got a lot of people that's in the community that Coach Holston touched their lives in some kind of way, that they want to see this come to pass also. And it was on the agenda for last month, but it got struck, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. But one of the things that I will have you know that Coach Holston, he was a great inspiration to a lot of kids in this community. And like I said, he coached football, he taught, he was an educator, and he really did mold a lot of young people. Now, I'm not as old as I were then, but I just thank God that he came in my life at the time that he did. And I think it would be fitting to rename Cedar Shoals baseball field after Coach James Lewis Holston. If you can dig down deep inside of yourself to find a way to making it, I guess, a unanimous vote to name the baseball field after James Lewis Holston, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to come to speak tonight. God bless you all.
Thank you. Up next, we have Sarabia Royal Dubose, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Oh, okay.
All right, good evening. My name is Sarabia Royal Dubose. I stand before you as a mother of 2 children in this district, a proud 2nd grade teacher, and a lifelong product of Clark County Schools. Go Glads. I'm speaking tonight because I believe in doing what's right, even when it's hard. That's what I teach my children and my students. Speak up, stand firm, choose integrity. So, here I am. On May 10th, 2025, faculty received a sudden email from the district removing our principal. No meeting, no explanation, just an announcement email. Since then, staff have had no opportunity to ask questions, express concerns, or gain clarity. To say we were hurt and confused is an understatement. What made it worse were the cheers that followed in front of our students. That behavior was not only unprofessional, it was harmful. It sent the wrong message about how adults handle change. During post-planning, I heard praise for our assistant principal, someone who I deeply respect, but those compliments were often paired with disrespectful remarks about our principal. Disagreement is one thing, but disrespect is another thing. And to be clear, this is not about individuals, it's about process, professionalism, and principle. I've heard and know that a petition allegedly from a small group may have influenced this decision. If this is true, we must ask, whose voices are being heard? Many of us never saw this petition. To make matters worse, multiple teachers have even openly admitted to manipulating district surveys to sway perception. If leadership decisions are being made based on bias or incomplete data, that's a dangerous precedent, one that weakens trust and undermines fairness. As a Black educator, I must also name the discomfort that's been felt. After the announcement, the culture shifted. A leader of color was removed without clear communication, and open celebration followed. That has implications that we simply cannot ignore. Our principal inherited real challenges and still made progress. She deserved a fair chance not to be blamed for problems she did not create. And if we truly value equity, we must protect and uplift our leaders who reflect the identities of the students that we serve, students who are largely Black and brown. What they see in leadership shapes what they believe is possible for their own selves. So tonight, I'm not just asking for answers, I'm asking for accountability and clarity. Thank you for your time, and most importantly, thank you for your reflection. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Kat Murray.
Hello, good evening, board. Thank you for your service to public education. I'm a teacher also at Whit Davis Elementary School. I've been there for 9 years. I've seen a lot of change happen, and we desperately need consistency at my school. In May, the staff at Whit Davis received notification that our principal would be moved to a new school. This makes our third leadership change in the last 4 years. Despite this major shift, we have not heard any district personnel reach out to us or have a visit with us to let us know about the transition or the context of why the change had to be made and had to be made in May. Whit Davis is a CSI designated school, and leadership and staff have been working extra hard to get us off that list. We've had regular meetings with district personnel called impact checks, and the impact checks always seem to go well. As far as I was aware, as a member of the SILT team, and our metrics were trending upward, So why did we have this sudden change in leadership? This destabilizes our school. Students and staff were forming relationships with Ms. Dean, and plans were being made and finalized for next year. It also, if something was suboptimal with what was going on at Whit Davis, I wish some feedback could have been made so that we can make adjustments. And there's other staff members that feel the way that I do, and that we are wondering about the lack of transparency and surrounding this decision. As a school staff, we may need some extra training, maybe some anti-bias or implicit bias training to better understand each other as we want to improve our workplace culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I believe that concludes our time for public comment, and we are going to now move to item 6 to adopt the agenda as presented. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that move, okay, made by Mr. Denson and seconded by Ms. Hull. Okay. All in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. And now we are on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to start by thanking those who participated in the budget process. That includes our staff, our building leaders, and our board. Congratulations to our second cohort of aspiring leaders. This was a great group, and I look forward to seeing where their careers will take them within our district. For those interested in joining CCSD team, we still have a few openings for roles which include paraprofessionals and special education teachers. I encourage members of our community to take a look at the CCSD website and apply for those that are in their area of interest. Also, a reminder that we still have slots available in our pre-K classrooms at several of our schools this fall, and we're actively registering students for kindergarten. Registration is fully online, and information can be found on our website. I'd like to wish a happy Father's Day to all of those who will be celebrating this Sunday. Many thanks to all the fathers who serve our district. I would also like to remind everyone that next Thursday, June the 19th, CCSD offices will be closed in observance of Juneteenth. For those who may not know, Juneteenth marks the day in 1865 when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people were freed. This arrival came to a full 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and marked the official end of slavery in our country. Juneteenth was declared a federal holiday in 2021. Finally, as we close this year out, I would like to close out my time with CCSD. I want to wish all members of the CCSD family the very best, and thank you for the support that you have shown me during my time here. I wish all of you the best and look forward to seeing this district continue to prosper and grow in the coming years. Thank you. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker, and we wish you all the best in the next phase of your life, retirement, and hopefully travel and spending time with family and all those things. All right, we are now going to move to our facilities update. Dr. Askew.
Good evening. Just a few updates today. First, the EV charger. It was shipped on June the 3rd, and there's actually an update to the bullet that's here. We've actually received it, and it's been installed. So we're in a good place with that. We're just waiting on training for staff, and that'll be the last step as it relates to our EV buses, which kind of leads me into the next slide. So as you guys are aware from our report last time, we were under a recall for one of our buses due to an issue with the battery. The vendor did dispatch a tech to Clark County School District on May 29th. The tech came and actually inspected both buses, and both buses were cleared of the recall. There was only a recall on one, but he inspected both. And so why was the recall being conducted? Basically, the battery harness, the piece that holds it in place, there were some defective parts from the manufacturer, but our buses were cleared according to the tech, so we're good to go. As soon as staff gets trained on the charger, we'll be charging our buses up, and they will certainly be on the road in the fall, later this summer, in fact. So we're real proud of that. And then building maintenance, of course, you all know as well, we've got some significant work to do on our roofs. One of those places is over at Classic City, that whole Homer T. Edwards campus over there. We had a roof above the school-based health center, or a leak above the school-based health center. That was pretty significant. The company that we used that did the report that you guys received came in and did the repair for us. This is just a spot repair, but you can see where the leaks were. You can see the joints where the seams are coming through on the roof. And then there's a photo of the repair, so that's just a spot repair, but we do need to go back and do some more significant restoration to the roof. But that handles that leak for now. And then, of course, we got painting and pressure washing and all types of cleaning going on across the district as we prepare for the coming school year. District buildings that are being painted this summer, significant painting projects. The district services building, that one's in progress. Whit Davis, that one's in progress this week as well. Cleveland Road, ACCA, that one's just pending scheduling. And then over at Hillsman, as well as the clinic over at Hillsman, they're going to get some fresh paint as well. And we're going to be redoing that clinic, not only the painting, but the flooring in there as well. But that won't begin until July. And then, of course, our guys participate in professional development too, just like the folks on the instructional side. As a matter of fact, Mark Bailey is the second vice president of our state association for our maintenance. So they were in Cochran this week at GSPMA, and we had quite a crew that went down to participate. And you can see a list of some of the courses. And then there's everybody who went from Clark County School District. We included some of the custodians this year as well, because they're a part of that training and organization as well. And then that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Askew. Are there questions?
Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Yeager? Yeah.
The painting is mostly exterior or interior?
Interior.
Interior, thank you.
Okay, I think that does it. Oh, sorry, Ms. Davis. Oh, you're good? Okay.
Okay, I was just going to commend you. I'm really excited to see the participation and things that get us out of our little space, and we get to go out and meet other people and find out and learn from them what's best for us as well. So good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. We have to continue learning, just like on the instructional side.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, now we are at item 9, our SPLOST monthly report.
We'll do a update by photo tonight. I tried to get Troy to limit them. So first we'll start with Cedar Shoals. This is a photo of the auto shop. They are outfitting the equipment as we speak. All the Connex boxes have been emptied, so Mr. Darden is putting everything in there. Jackson County did a drone flyover of their new shop. I'll get with Scott and we'll put some video together and we'll put that to shame. So this is state of the art. And actually next week, Mr. Darden is going for training on some of the new equipment. So he's pretty excited and fired up, and he's there every day. So it's great. Old gym, new wood flooring is going in the gymnasium. So that's underway. So that's happening in the old gym. The main entrance, admin space, check-in area, all that's been gutted and demoed, and renovations are going there. This is the old media center. So it's been gutted, and we're making changes in there as well. This is the ROTC building. It's got half the roof on. It's a little bit further now. So that work is coming along fine. We're at the girls' softball field, redoing the infield and repairing some of the sod. Next photo is you've got ROTC area, baseball, and the football field. So you can see the football field, all the turf, grass has been stripped off, new irrigation system being put in, and we're coordinating with the football coach and the football players to keep them in the field house and on the practice field while we have all this other stuff going on, trying to keep everybody safe. Then this is the area for the ag program. Their gardens being topsoil is going back in, and we'll get them back up and running as well. This new roof going on the old gym. Fine Arts got some storm drainage we're installing and a new canopy going in that location. And then yesterday, the asphalt company showed up, so we're repaving, milling and stripping the old asphalt and putting down new asphalt as well. So pretty much we're all over that campus, and we have elections next Tuesday. So if you voted Cedar Shoals, please come in the rear entrance, park by the custodial parking area, and we'll get you up to the field house. This is at Gaines. We've got the modular pad graded, and they actually moved. In the next photo, you can see they've moved the modular buildings from Cedar over to Gaines, and that'll be set up this summer, ready for August 1st occupancy. And then the warehouse, so the warehouse addition is dried in. The loading dock expansion or leveler has been installed. I think that's the last photo. They asked for another leveler, so we got them that for another bay. So hopefully to get that wrapped up as well by August 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbreth. Are there questions? Ms. Hull?
More of a comment. I look forward to seeing so much extensive detail put into the Gaines School playground for the renovation plans or the proposal that'll be submitted to us in August. Much more than a strip of grass. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Well, the good thing is where we leveled the area for the modulars, we can now put in a level soccer field. So you're not going to be running uphill when you play soccer. So that's, that should help.
I'll take the progress. I'm just wanting to make sure it's enough time out there to say that at least one board member is looking for a lot of attention to detail, and I hope my other members will join me since we're talking about equity, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to really make a difference at that school. Thank you.
And Mr. Book, can you remind, how long are the renovations at Gaines going to take?
So I will bring to you, hopefully in August, the construction contract. They'll start September 1st on the additions and the one-wing expansion. And then that'll go on until next summer. The next summer, we'll renovate inside the building. And then hopefully by the fall of '26, they should be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we look forward to continuing this conversation in August. Thank you so much, Mr. Gilbreth. Okay, now we are on item 10, the consent agenda. So again, these are the items that we discussed and agreed to vote on singularly, collectively. Could not find that word. All right. Need a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, motion made by Mr. Evans and seconded by Ms. Hensley. Are there any, no, there's no discussions. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Now we are at the business items for the individual votes. So let's start with A, our grade 2 Chromebooks. We need a motion before we can discuss.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hull and seconded by Dr. Yeager. Now the floor is open for discussion. Ms. Hull, would you like to lead the conversation?
I do not. I don't have any questions or concerns. Thank
Dr. Yeager? All right, were there other, we pulled it, so, okay, Dr. Gant?
Yes, so I think with the Chromebooks, I know I don't have the majority, and so this is probably outside of the consensus, but I do want to see us maybe see how this sort of flows with our strategic direction. I know before we've, you know, we had the switches, like for the school with leadership, with the gaps in achievement and things like that, and I'm getting maybe just a little bit more reluctant, particularly with the second graders, having the individual Chromebooks. For some reason, I thought it was 4th and 5th graders, and it was only for testing for our younger grades. And so it's something I think I'm just a little bit more cautious about right now until I can just sort of figure out I know that this is not all, I don't think this is all second grade Chromebooks.
It is.
Is it all? Yeah. But I would love for us as a district to talk a little bit more about that and how the use of the Chromebook so far, how do we feel like it's actually facilitating us in decreasing some of the gaps that we see. And again, I don't anticipate that happening tonight, and I don't anticipate necessarily a majority here, but I wanted to sort of put it out there, maybe even for future conversations. And so tonight, I'm going to hold off on this vote. I'm not going to vote in favor of it, but I would love just for us to have some more intentional conversations, not just about the Chromebooks, but I know before technology has come up, cell phones in elementary school, like just sort of where we're headed with this, and if this is a necessary expenditure for everyone to have a one-on-one device in second grade.
Okay. So before we vote on it, Dr. Scott, did you want to just kind of give us a little maybe perspective from your office on why second graders, why you all as a district have decided that second graders and up need Chromebooks?
Sure. So as we think about the use of devices, then it does vary from school to school and class to class, the content as far as how it's being used. Of course, all of our students do need a device when it comes to our actual assessments because those are online, but we do encourage our teachers to only use those devices if it truly does enhance the instruction. And so it should not be that students are sitting on devices for extended periods of time throughout the day. It should not be a replacement for that good in-person instruction. And so with that, then you don't necessarily see a lot of use of devices throughout the day when we're visiting schools because it's not a part of the daily instruction that they must have a device out and using it in some type of way. It truly is just used if it's an opportunity to enhance what's going on for any particular content area.
Okay. And I guess to maybe aid in your concerns, I think that conversation has a place in perhaps our superintendent evaluation, where we are talking through the strategic goals and the metrics that we're using and sort of the direction that the superintendent is trying to lead us in to meet those goals. Maybe that's where this conversation probably could take place more robustly. So I don't know, Ms. Palmer, could we make sure that we've got a note of that when we do our planning for our next retreat, and have conversations about the superintendent evaluation tool? Okay. Does that sound like an appropriate space for that? Okay. I'm just kind of trying to figure out where this fits in.
Yes, yes, thank you. And again, it may not be necessarily a consensus yet, so, if it doesn't make it to that particular agenda, that's fine. I'm sure with our one-on-ones, we can sort of talk through it as well. But I did just want to fill in a little bit dis-ease, and I wanted to just give some context for that in my vote.
Okay, gotcha.
So I have a question.
Ms. Davis?
Yeah, so if I'm curious as to why the superintendent's evaluation as opposed to a review of the strategic plan.
It was just a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, if the board decides that they would rather have that conversation during the review of the strategic plan, that's fine too.
Oh, I would
was
like
just
that
kinda-
better because,
Yeah, either one.
okay, thank you.
Or both. Yeah, or why not? Yeah, exactly. One informs the other. So I do see a space where we could do it at our next retreat when we're talking about our strategic goals. Okay, we are at a vote, right? No more conversation? Okay, so there's a vote on the floor to approve the purchase of grade 2 Chromebooks. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Aye. All right, 8-1. Okay, now we are at the 25-26 SRO agreement with CCSD ACC Gov. There was a lot of conversation had at the work session. So if somebody wants to put a motion on the floor, we can either continue that conversation or go for a straight vote.
Make a motion that we approve the 25-26 SRO agreement with CCSD and ACC government.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Evans and I think seconded by Ms. Davis. All right, that motion's, Mr. Evans, do you want to lead the conversation as a motion maker?
Yeah, I think this is something that just needs to happen.
Okay.
Our community wants us to ensure the safety of our children. I understand some of the reservations that some of my fellow board members have about this. There are some things that we do need to discuss. I want our SROs to be an extension of the school, not an extension of the civilian police force. That's not their job. I don't, with investigations and things like that. So I think that there's a larger, broader conversation we need to have. But for right now, we need to get these guys in our schools, and ladies, excuse me, guys and ladies in our schools. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Davis?
No, I think it's important that I think we're answering the concern about safety in our schools, and so I think it's important that we answer that concern, but I think it's also important that we measure, to see if we can see any differences that are happening there. But again, to have the confidence, to me, it's about the parity or equity. I mean, if we have one at one elementary school, we should have them at all elementary schools. I'm trying to get to a place where if it takes 2 SROs to feel safe in coming to school, then let's do that. And let's do that across the board for all of the schools that we're concerned about.
Okay. All right. Are there others who have any thoughts or concerns or questions before we make our vote? Okay. So the motion has been made and seconded to approve the SRO contract for 25-26, I don't know, 25-26. All in favor of approving the SRO contract, please raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. That motion has passed 8-1, Ms. Palmer. Okay. Now we are at the policies. Policy CD, line and staff relations. I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, motion made by Mr. Denson and seconded by Dr. Yeager. Any conversations? Nope. Okay, all in favor of approving policy CD, line and staff relations, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Policy BC, board meetings.
The
Oh, yes, okay. Board meetings.
I make a motion, we approve it.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. Hensley and seconded by Mr. Denson. No discussion, I assume. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is that any opposed? Oh, you didn't get to, okay.
So I'll do it now. Is it okay?
Sure.
So I want to thank you, Dr. Hooker, for taking us to record board meetings, efficiency that we have gained from our new strategy. And it is one of the things that I will always remember you for.
It was controversial, and here we are, thanking Dr. Hooker. Imagine.
You're welcome.
That means a lot coming from you, Ms. Davis, so thank you so much.
That's her parting gift. All right, so that vote has passed, and now we are at policy BCBF, rules of order. I need a motion.
I move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Mr. Denson and seconded by Mr. Evans. All in favor of approving rules of order, policy BCBF, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. And now we are at F, the job description for the Director of Behavior Support. Before we can proceed with the discussion, I need a motion.
Make
Any
a motion that we accept the job description as written.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made by Mr. Evans and seconded by Ms. Hensley. Now the floor is open for discussion. Mr. Evans, would you like to lead?
I yield to Dr. Gant.
Okay. Dr. Gant?
Yes, with this particular description, I think it would be helpful if we could have just more information on how this actually ties into our other behavior supports. I think from my understanding, we have coordinators of behavior support, behavior specialists, behavior interventionists. And so for me, I guess, so that's one thing. The second thing I was hoping is that the district could shed a little bit more light on the requirements. I had them here. Where did they go? Okay, work experience with the 3 years of teaching experience. And I know this was like a conversation from a few years ago when we, when we discussed maybe the behavior specialist descriptions and the requirements for teaching versus people that are like expertise in the clinical area, so that they can actually, so that that team has capacity to provide behavior supports. But then when it goes beyond that, beyond your regular behavior modification and relationship building, and it needs to be something a little bit more, that that team has the capacity to do that. And so for me, it would be helpful before putting this position out there to have a better idea of how all of this, how it connects, where we are with our behaviors in the district. I know it's in our dashboard, but just really understanding, like, where are we going, with this, and what are our goals with this person, to what degree are they going to be providing direct services, versus like more so the coordination and overseeing of our other behavior specialists. And so, barring that there's not, I'm assuming that this is sort of already baked into the budget for next year. So it's not that I'm necessarily opposed, but more so I would love to see how this ties together and what our anticipated outcomes are from this position and the people who this person will, I'm assuming, work with or supervise.
Okay, and I will have Dr. Scott to answer you. This is under her department. Dr. Scott?
Sure. So thank you for those questions. When we're looking at this particular position, it's not a new, an added position as much as it is a revision to a position that currently exists. And so we currently have a coordinator with our special education program that oversees our specialized programs that are a part of Lighthouse. And so those are the students that were a part of the Rutland system, or GNETs, that are now housed here in our district. And so we have an oversight person. We have to have a Lighthouse coordinator. So it's one of our special education coordinators that has been doing that work, especially working with our special ed behavior support staff as well. With that, we recognized that there was some misalignment in what supports look like coming out of our special education department versus our student supports department. So this past year, there was a lot of collaboration amongst the person that oversaw that within special ed and our director of school supports and discipline. With that being said, there was a lot of training that was done for our behavior specialists, our coordinators of behavior support, which live in the student supports arena. And we recognized that those two needed to really be combined, because we want to be able to support all students across the district, and to make sure that we are doing that in a consistent manner, that it looks the same no matter what, as far as what that support is looking like, that training is there for everyone. When we're thinking about what this looks like, then it's not to create an additional position per se, as much as to really streamline what the support looks like from school to school, and if they're in a specialized program. So with that being said, this person would oversee the work that is happening with our behavior support staff coming out of the special education department, as well as our student supports department. This person would also continue with their caseloads of their support that they're providing to these specialized programs, and they would continue to be our representative with Northeast Georgia RESA for the Lighthouse program for students that came out of the GNETS program. And for your the second portion that you were asking about for the qualifications, then it does say 3 years of teaching experience or equivalent experience related to positive behavior intervention and discipline. And so with that, then we're looking for those that may have those levels of expertise and certification that would deem them appropriate for this position. When we're thinking about from a teaching experience standpoint, then again, someone who would have some more specialized training for the behavior supports to be able to provide that level of training for a school base, as well as being able to assist with the development of intervention plans and the implementation of that, and being able to support administrative staff in understanding how to best support students.
Okay. And so this person will be, we'll have the director of student supports and then the director of behavior supports. And that person would, in addition to their caseload, provide any type of clinical or supervisory support to all of the other behavioral staff.
So specifically the coordinators of behavior support and the behavior specialists, those are the district level positions. The behavior interventionists are school-based personnel. They would support them as well through the PL sessions that happen monthly for our behavior interventionists, but the supervision of behavior interventionists comes at the school level, so principals supervise them.
I see. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for those questions. That was really helpful, getting that explanation. Ms. Hull, you have a question?
I think I share in Dr. Gantt's concerns, or maybe just requests for more information. It was very helpful to hear how there will be correlation and training with special education, because we know behavior, communication, and we'll be servicing those students. it doesn't look like that is reflected as heavily in the work description. It sounds like behind the curtain, there's been a lot of training and collaboration. But with this description, I'm struggling because it kind of seems like special education was kind of tacked in. And I know that that's not the intent, but I guess my concern is just seeing that if we have a director of behavior and they don't understand or they don't have that high level of training in dealing with how behavior and communication and how those different diagnoses can affect student behavior, we just get into this cycle of punishing kids. And it's not looked at through that framework of this child might not be able to help themselves or may need additional support. So I would love to just get more information. We have so much that's about to happen with our strategic plan, with looking at our superintendent. I think this would be a great time for us to review everything and just make sure that we have everything that we said like we wanted to. So, thank you.
Dr. Scott, did you want to respond to Ms. Hull's, I guess, primary concern is the language not, I guess, really directly aligning with the needs of students with special needs? I think that was part of your...
I think so, and I probably did not do a very good job articulating it. My concern is that somebody that has very little experience with special education students could serve in this role, and then that particular population of students not receive the true support that we are intending them to receive because the person that we hired, we did not require them to have certain expertise.
Got you. Dr. Scott, did you want to respond to that, or?
So yes, I completely understand that. I'm recognizing that the person that's currently would be sitting in this role, because it's a change in their particular title, does have extensive experience, then I know that that's not the case now, but if we ever need to replace them, then it would be important that that's noted within the job description that we're looking for someone that does have some level of experience with special education or knowledge around that.
Okay. Dr. Gant.
I wonder if the board and Dr. Hooker and Dr. Scott would be open, particularly if this is a sort of a merging of, or expansion of some of the responsibilities and things of that nature, if you all would be open to tabling this. It sounds like it's a switcheroo with a position and with some additional expansion versus like a new full-blown person. And so I wonder if that might be an option while we can sort of at least wrap our heads around exactly what the person is doing, but also how this connects to, you know, like our any performance indicators or any type of goals that we have as it relates to behavior. Again, I understand it's already been baked in the budget and things like that, so it's not necessarily a no, but if we could have a little bit more time. I also know that summer is sort of a slow time, but for me, I think I would appreciate that if I may offer a substitute motion, and if it fails, it fails, and we'll be back at approving this. So I recommend, I put a motion, a substitute motion on the table that this position is brought back before us, perhaps in July? August?
We don't meet until August, and it's going to be imperative that this individual begins training in July when people return to work with these individuals. So I would ask that we move forward and with this position, because if we wait till August and they do not have this in place, it can impede what we plan for the training that they will receive in July.
I definitely hear that, Dr. Hooker, and I want to be sensitive to like what the district needs. I think you know, if when we're going in these directions with expanding our behavior supports, and not just behavior supports, but mental health supports and things like that, I really do think it's important for us to be able to connect the dots, because discipline, it falls in our lap, you know, by, even if it's not here, you know, and it impacts instruction. And so if we were moving in this direction, I think this would have, if this is one of those really critical positions, and if we were moving in this direction, and maybe the district did do this, because I know I've been a little bit sort of hit or miss over the past month, but it would have, I think it would be helpful, at least for me, to know that this is where we're going in a couple of months. And so, in essence, we're approving a new position for trainings that have already, it sounds like, you know, been set up. And I just think maybe a little bit more information and understanding of how all of this fits. I do understand we can get that after we've approved the position as well. But that's just sort of, that's where I am. But I also respect if I'm in the minority.
May I speak?
Can I just add something before we move on with additional discussions on this? It sounds like the level of conversation that at least a couple of the board members want to have about this particular position might even fall into executive session, because this is largely about a person who is already employed to do this work. And so am I misinterpreting that that's kind of where you would be going into?
Don't think, may I speak now?
I'm just
Oh, you're
asking,
trying to get
wait, Ms. Davis, I'm just asking for some clarification, just so I know.
No, not necessarily, and I may need help teasing out exactly what I'm saying, but it's not necessarily the person, but what I hear is that someone is already doing a good bit of this, but we're going to be expanding. We're going to be expanding the work that they do. And what I'm saying is, as we are expanding the work that they do, whether it's a person who's already here or a person that we're going to be hiring, we're growing this responsibility, it would be good to sort of know, quite frankly, not just for this position, but like how all of this fits, because a little bit of it sounds like, you know, on one hand, it sounds like, well, we have a director of supports, of school supports. And so we're with this, you know, so I'm just trying to really figure out where, like what this means, what we're hoping this means for our outcomes. So.
Okay, that was helpful. Ms. Davis, you had a question?
It just, from the discussion, and I'm hearing it with an ear of only having read that description with no knowledge of what's happening now, it really sounds like a reevaluation of a job. And if that's what this is, then maybe that's what we should be looking at, is a reevaluation of a current position that would expand it to include these things, and maybe that's the direction to go in. Because it sounds like it's a person that we already have, and so there's not going to be any competition here. So let's just look at the reevaluation process, which is what I'm familiar with when situations like this occur. When somebody's work expands beyond their core responsibilities, and we don't have another position already identified to do that, then in my 40 years of working, we simply reevaluated the job and assigned the correct salary to it. That's my suggestion.
Okay. Mr. Denson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess first, like, I would just, I guess, ask in the future. It sounds like this is one of those votes where we're not really being given a chance to vote no, because it can cause, but it's because of a timing issue that it was brought to us at a time where we were forced to vote yes. So I guess I would definitely ask that in the future, it sounded like this should have been voted on a month or so ago, before we were kind of trapped in this space where we have to vote yes. And so with that being the case, I guess I wonder if it's an option for us to go ahead and to make a motion to go ahead and approve this, but with asking staff to come back with an amended job description for us to be able to consider in August or September with the kind of ideas that were brought up here and the concerns, if that's possible.
That is something we can do.
Can I ask a question before, because I see what you're saying, Mr. Denson, but I also do fully see the concerns of several members where, having to make an emergency decision just kind of seems like you're not giving people the opportunity to ask the right questions, kind of follow up on those questions, and really be confident in their vote. So can I ask, and Dr. Hooker and Dr. Scott, maybe you can help, does tabling this until August, where we are able to have a more robust conversation and perhaps even amend this job description, does that mean that this person does not then get promoted in some way, or their salary gets affected? Does it move into that territory?
Yes, because unless the job description is approved, then it would not change their current title. So they would stay within the current title.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or authority and pay. And just as a point of clarification, it's not expanding the work of the behavior coordinators or behavior specialists in any type of way. It's really bringing them under the direction of someone who has that specialized training around behavioral supports for students. And so I want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand what you were saying about the possible change or expansion of behavioral supports as much. So it's not an expansion of it as much as it's really bringing them under the direction of someone who is trained.
Okay. So it's almost like I'm trying to imagine this as like, if someone has been sort of doing the work as a supervisor, and then you're now wanting to promote them to director so that they have that salary that matches the work that they've already been doing, and then it's sort of like collapsing the units so that they're under this one individual. Is that what you're doing?
It's a restructuring to make sure that those who are doing all of the behavioral support work are living in the same department.
Okay.
And so that their work is streamlined and they're working under the direction of someone who has that specialized training and experience to oversee their work, to make sure that we're consistent from school to school and providing the supports that students need.
Okay. All right, that helped me a little bit with clarification. I do know, just from a procedural standpoint, we have a substitute motion on the floor. Well, did you?
I did. I don't think it got a second, though.
Oh, it didn't get a second. Okay. Do you, okay.
I'll
so-
withdraw it. If it didn't, I don't think it was a second, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So now we still have a motion on the floor then. With all of that has been discussed, there is now still a motion on the floor to approve this job description. And Mr. Denson, I do like your suggestion, and if the district is amenable to that, we can revisit in August the job description and possibly look at an amended description that we can discuss and vote. Okay.
Yes, so yeah, I'll make that motion that we approve the current job description, but with the expectation that staff brings us an amended job description with taking into account the concerns here for us to vote on in August. Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's a substitute motion.
Yeah, it's a substitute
It
motion.
is a substitute motion, yes. And now, so do we need a second for a substitute motion? Okay. So we've got a substitute motion on the floor with all of the things that Mr. Denson just said, and hopefully the district you got that, Ms. Palmer? Okay. And made and seconded. So we are going to go ahead and vote for that since we've had plenty of conversation. Oh,
I just have
Dr. Dance.
a quick clarifying question. And so because this has already been included in the budget for next year, like this particular position, is this one position, or if it's a restructuring, is it several positions?
It's just one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So there's a substitute motion that's been seconded. All in favor of Mr. Denson's substitute motion, raise your hand high and please say aye so that I have a full accounting.
Aye.
Okay. And then any opposed? Okay. So we've got 7-2. And Mr. Evans, if you could also just note that this is we need to make sure that when we have our agenda setting meeting in August, that this is a part of that conversation. Thank you. Okay, we are now at personnel, item G. I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the personnel.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. Hensley, yep, and seconded by Ms. Hull. All in favor of approving our June personnel, raise your hand and say, yep, yes. Oh, yes, you had a few, I remember now, sorry. Dr. Gant, you had some questions about process.
Yes, about process. Again, thank you for all of the information. It was really helpful. I did want to just clarify with our paraprofessionals inside of the document that was shared, where you all answered the question about what was required of our paraprofessionals. Where did it go? There was a letter that was also attached to that you all sent out that said, like previously, because of our waiver, we've had some flexibility as it relates to the paraprofessional certification, and also during COVID. But the district was moving towards the expectation that all of our paraprofessionals would be certified. In that letter, so I guess my question would be, and then in one of the questions that you all answered, you mentioned that it is a state requirement that our paraprofessionals are certified. And so I guess I'm trying to figure out, was it like, did we have flexibility due to COVID? And is that the reason that we didn't have to really enforce the certification for our paraprofessionals?
And I'm going to ask Mr. Penley to step to the mic. He's worked with Mr. Swartz and worked with our paraprofessionals in certification.
Good evening. So in terms of using that word flexibility, it's really important that we think about our charter flexibility different from just flexibility. We did not have charter flexibility to waive paraprofessional certification. It has always been required on the part of the state of Georgia. During COVID, there was a long period of time where testing centers were closed, and so there was no accountability for that expectation, and so that's why we ended up not having so many paraprofessionals certified during that period of time.
Okay, and so so now that those testing centers are open, nothing has changed about the state requirement. It's just that the ability to be able to test.
The ability to be able to test is there, and we are coming under a federal audit over the next year, and so we have to have all of our documentation in place for that audit that happens every 5 years.
Okay, and with our, are there other questions? I don't want to monopolize. It just hit me. I'm sorry. I have other questions, but
All right, Ms. Davis, your mic is on. Did you have a question before Dr. Gant comes back on the scene? Okay, no, you're fine. So, Dr. Gant, I guess you can continue your interrogation.
I'm
just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a
No,
joke.
Dr. Finley. No, I'm just trying to know what to tell the people.
Spotlight somewhere for you?
And so,
Turn down the lights.
with with this first letter that you all sent out to the paraprofessionals, it did not, I don't think it like specifically said like, if you do not do this, then you will have to resign at the end of May. And so I guess, and maybe there was some other community, I'm just looking at what you all shared with us.
Are you looking at the July 29th notification?
Uh-huh.
Is there a line at the top? I'm trying to remember from the top of my head, forgive me. I believe the language we've used has been, in order to continue in your position, certification is expected, because we've been searching all year long for additional flexibility in the hopes that we would not have to get here.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I know it was like just sort of some general concern, like community concern. And, what I was sharing is it sounds like based on everything that you all shared, I mean, it sounds like there's been communication from, from your department, and then it just happened to be like just not a good situation. So I was just trying to figure out, one, how was it communicated at the beginning? And then two, how do we as a district support those individuals? Because as we look at our personnel list, we see sort of the result of that. What is the district doing to support those individuals? Let's just say if they're able to test this summer, I know that they moved over to they had to resign, and then they have to be rehired by ESS. But is there a possibility that if they pass with the supports that you all provide, that they can go back into that position, and have those positions been included in this budget in the event that those paraprofessionals are able to rejoin us?
Yes, any paraprofessional who is still attempting to take the GACE over the summer, we are working with to ensure that we can find a role for them.
Okay.
We've hesitated to ask principals to hold positions because we know they need to fill, but we typically always have vacancies in the paraprofessional pool, and so we will work with any paraprofessional who does. We do have 5 who are going to work in long-term sub-positions until they are able to get their certification. And of the 13 resignations who are not moving into that, 8 of them were paraprofessionals who were not interested in staying on. They did not attempt to take the test or to pursue certification.
Okay. And do we have any information as far as feedback regarding why those individuals who have been paraprofessionals for that amount of time just, I'm trying to merge information, that I know with some of our paraprofessionals, if they have test anxiety, they're having to take the test because they don't have that associate degree, or they haven't turned that information in. And so those that just decided not to, do we have any information about that? And as far as any processes or things that we can do to?
I don't have information directly from them. I know that we offered both in-person study support as well as online study support that we provided, paid for, and some of our paraprofessionals took advantage of it and some chose not to.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so did that give you your answers for the process? Okay. So we've still got a vote to make on personnel. Wait, did we get a motion in a second,
Yes, we
Mr.
did.
Evans? Okay. All right, all in favor of approving our June personnel list, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion, okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Davis, for letting us know. All right, and now we've got our April and May financial reports. I think I need a motion. I do.
I move to approve or receive the April and May financial reports.
Second.
All right, motion made by Dr. Yeager and seconded by Ms. Hensley. Any questions, anything to add to the conversation? Okay. Dr. Who? Dr. Gant.
Go first.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, your
Yeah,
mic was on, okay. Ms. Davis.
I'm sorry, this is probably totally not, it's a part of the budget, and it's a part of the financials, but there was an increase in, was it the health insurance for the classifieds this year? That was like $300 and something. Did I read that correctly?
I'm trying to remember, so the last few years, the state has increased the classified health insurance. Next year, it's roughly this year, we were 15 to 16,000 per year.
Okay.
It's going up to 22,620.
Because of the
There was
classified.
supposed to be, it's 1780 a month. I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while since I looked at that figure. 1780 a month. It was supposed to only go up to a certain threshold, and then they raised certified, and what they've done now is they made certified and classified. So there was a bigger leap than we anticipated this year. There wasn't supposed to be quite as big a leap. And I think when the governor proposed the budget, everybody was kind of caught off guard this year. So, and again, that's there's actually no subsidy from the state on classified at all. Certified, we mostly get back through QBE. It's not quite 100%, but it's close. But on the classified, which is our our transportation, custodial staff, maintenance and operations. That's our biggest classified employee groups. And paraprofessionals too, I'll throw that in there. They're also in that classified, so we get no subsidy from the state for them as well.
Okay, it was just a huge number. And so, if I were classified, I would okay, I just got a pay increase because look what I'm worth now. But okay, thank you. I knew it was large and unusually so. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for a vote for the April and May financial reports. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. And now we are at the FY26 millage rate. So, yeah, we've had several hearings, and our conscience is clear, and we're ready for a vote. Okay, I need a motion.
I move that we vote to accept the FY 2026 millage rate.
Okay.
Second?
All right, motion made by Ms. Hall and seconded by Ms. Davis. All in favor of approving the 2026 millage rate, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, we've got a 8-1, 9-7-1, 8-1, 8-1. Okay, and now we are at J, the FY26 final budget.
I move that we accept the FY 26 final budget.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hull and seconded by Dr. Yeager. Any conversation? Any, okay, everybody's good? Okay, all in favor of approving the FY 26 final budget, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, we've got 7-2. Ms. Palmer. And now we are at item 12, our information items and board community reports. Early Head Start Policy Council meeting minutes and reports. Mr. Denson?
Yes, thank you. The report we have here is from the meeting that we did our mandated governance training and bylaw approval, and we did it well, so yeah.
All right, that's a nice and short report. Thank you. Our Community Oversight Committee report, Ms. Hensley? Is that?
That's Ms. Davis.
Goodness. Ms. Davis, I'm sorry. Ms. Davis? I'm so sorry.
No, the Community Oversight Committee did meet this past week, and an excellent report from, as always, from our Facilities Department and Transportation. I believe there will be a request coming forward to perhaps have the Transportation Department join them in join the COC meetings to talk about the current state of the buses and where we're going with that. I learned a lot in those meetings, so it's actually a great assignment, and thank you very much for that. But you have the written report and the financials, and so it's a repeat of what you've already seen.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next up, we've got our Athens Community Career Academy report. Mr. Evans?
They did not meet as they had their last meeting, but anecdotally, I have been going past there a great deal the past few weeks, and their camps are amazing. They have all sorts of rising ninth graders that come in and take a look at the different pathways that are available. And there's a welding camp that Mr. Woodson does. Mr. Woodson was one of our employees of the month this past year. And that has also been well attended. And they actually get their certification after 3 weeks. So I'm thinking about dropping out and going back and going to take welding. I think I'd be a good welder. So,
I think you would.
But yeah, no. Other than that, there is no report, and except that they're really looking forward to August.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, we have our Athens Area Community Foundation. Ms. Hensley?
Yeah, I've been kind of out of pocket with them, but we do have a strategic philanthropy meeting coming up on the 17th. So in August, I will have an update as to what's going on. There hasn't been a lot going on. It's been pretty quiet right now.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hensley. And then we've got last up Envision Athens. Mr. Denson?
Yeah, the only thing to report on this is a couple of really interesting events that Envision did over the last 6 weeks or so that was focused on fair chance employment, and it was specifically targeted at trying to inform and educate employers here in the Athens area about how they could be changing some of their hiring policies to open up to those who have been justice impacted and might have criminal records. And so I think that was a great way that Envision kind of saw that there was a gap a little bit in education out in the larger sense of the word in our community, and has really kind of taken some steps there. I think that will really help some of those folks who have some barriers there for employment. So I think that was a really good thing, and it shows that our investment in Envision, along with other people's investment, I think is doing some important things.
Okay. I think that's it for our information items. We are now at item 13.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We need a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hooker, for your service.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker.
And thank you, everyone from the district, for being here tonight. We'll